Chapter 2186. The night sky was filled with stars, and a cool breeze blew. The weather suddenly turned cold, and there were naturally fewer people. Most people chose to go back to sleep. After all, the elven messenger's homework was tiring, and no one wanted to waste time on unnecessary things. Of course, there were exceptions to everything. Living in such a nice place, aren't you afraid of being accused of abusing your position? Bad woman. Grievous's room. No, it would be more appropriate to call it a private villa. Crystals were the lighting, and silk was the carpet on the floor. It was extremely extravagant, a living example of a nouveau riche. If you don't like it, you can sleep on the streets. Grievous sat on the sofa, opened a bottle of red wine, and started drinking. If you have anything to ask, just ask. Dustless didn't waste any time. He sat opposite Grievous, knowing that this woman would definitely have a lot of questions for him. After all, it was too strange for a male elven messenger to suddenly appear. You know Demon King Suleiman? Grievous put down the wine glass and asked in a deep voice. She originally thought that God Fengzhao was the successor of the Demon King, but with Dustless's appearance, this matter wasn't as simple as she thought. Of course I know. Dustless nodded. The person who brought disaster to the world 1,000 years ago. You want to say that either God Fengzhao or I is the successor of the Demon King, right? I originally thought that God Fengzhao was the successor of the Demon King, but with your appearance, this possibility was destroyed. Grievous's tone suddenly became heavier. Although it's worth a surprise, to be honest, I don't think this is a good thing. That's for sure. You're afraid that the two Demon Kings will fight and bring disaster to the fish in a moat, right? Wu Chen laughed mischievously. If the school is destroyed, it'll be a tragedy. No wonder Alice hates you so much. You don't know how to speak at all. Grievous's tone sounded like she hated Dustless, but her tone was as calm as before. Not only that, there was a hint of something strange. Is this woman a submissive? The worse the words, the more she likes it? Dustless's lips curled up slightly, and he looked at Grievous with a strange gaze. In short, there is only one successor to the Demon King. I don't think I need to say more, right? Grievous looked deeply at Dustless and explained, in other words, between you and Fengzhao, only one of you can become the Demon King. As for who will fail, I don't need to tell you. You called me here in the middle of the night just to talk nonsense? Dustless said absent-mindedly, with a trace of undisguised bitterness in his tone. I'm even prepared to be taken advantage of by you, but you're talking a lot of nonsense to me. Grievous's mouth twitched, and he said coldly, Aren't you afraid that I will kill you and help Fengzhao become the Demon King? According to his plan, Dustless should try his best to curry favor with him and help him become the Demon King. Now, Dustless' attitude was like he was toying with him. Ignorant woman, from the beginning to the end, I have never said that I want to be the Demon King's successor. I'm also not interested in that Demon King Suleiman. Dustless rubbed his nose, yawned, and said, If I knew you were going to talk nonsense with me, I would have gone to sleep. How dare you? Grievous, who couldn't take it anymore, flew into a rage. He stared at Dustless unkindly and said with a straight face, This is my house. If I don't let you do anything, you have to listen to me. Now, Grievous's eyes suddenly turned, and he suddenly remembered how he teased Fengzhao back then. He immediately ordered, Now, with a maid uniform, and clean the room. Also swish, swish, swish. Before he finished speaking, Dustless suddenly appeared in front of Grievous. His speed was so fast that even this unfathomable Dean couldn't help but be stunned. While she was in a daze, Dustless suddenly tore her clothes, revealing her voluptuous body. Since you like to wear the maid uniform for others, try it on yourself first. Let me learn a little. Grievous's body seemed to be nailed to the ground. She was dumbfounded and was still in shock. It seemed that she couldn't understand why someone dared to touch her in her own territory. Time flew by quickly. After only a minute, Dustless put the maid uniform on Grievous and said, Although you're old, your beauty is still there. You can barely be my servant. Grievous, who came back to her senses, had veins popping out on her forehead. This guy is really too much. Does he know who he is? Does he know whose territory this is? How dare he show off above her head? Boom, boom, boom. Violent energy waves burst out of his body, shattering the furniture around him. The glass shattered into countless pieces, and even the entire house was shaking. It wasn't hard to see that Grievous was really angry. You want to fight? If you're not afraid of humiliating yourself, fine. Dustless was calm and said indifferently, continue. Anyway, you're wearing the maid uniform now. When that group of knights comes, especially that last Alice, your image in her heart will probably collapse. You have guts. Grievous seemed to have been electrocuted. Although she was extremely unhappy and angry, her aura disappeared. If she was wearing the maid uniform and Dustless was drinking tea with a satisfied expression, wouldn't their identities be switched? How could she face others in the future? Remember this clearly. Dustless's tone suddenly turned cold. He was no longer as casual and frivolous as before. He warned, don't do childish actions and don't be too self-righteous. I'm playing with you guys because it's my interest. Just treat it as killing time. If I lose interest one day, this school might be attacked by a meteorite from outer space and be smashed to pieces. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2187. You dare threaten me? Grievous' expression was a little dazed and surprised. He had always been the one threatening others. Who would have thought that one day in the future he would be threatened by a kid of unknown origin? But Grievous pursed his lips and muttered to himself in a voice as soft as a mosquito, "What an interesting kid. I'm getting more and more interested in you." Even though Grievous' accent was very soft, Dustless heard it clearly. He didn't miss a single word. "You're indeed a bottom, you pervert." After saying that, Dustless distanced himself from Grievous with a face full of fear and a look that said, "Don't mess around. This kid, why is he asking for a beating?" Grievous covered his eyes with both hands and didn't want to look at Dustless's face anymore. He was definitely a jinx. In these few minutes, he had suffered more grievances than he had in a lifetime. The next morning, after eating breakfast, Dustless rushed to class early. It was the first time that Dustless came into contact with the profession of Elven Messenger. Even though it was purely useless, there was no harm in having more skills. "Stop right there, you perverted beast." A familiar, arrogant tone came from behind, as if a noble queen had arrived. Even without looking back, Dustless knew who this person was. In the entire Alicia Elven Academy, only Claire called him a perverted beast. Dustless turned his head and asked, "Girl, why are you not in class so early in the morning?" "You are my contracted elf. You have no right to interfere with my business, you slave elf." Claire looked like she had eaten gunpowder and stared at Dustless covetously. "If you have something to say, just say it," Dustless said helplessly. Cough, cough, cough. Claire coughed twice and stared at Dustless for a while before asking in a slightly embarrassed tone, "Last night, Dean Grievous didn't do anything strange to you, right?" "Strange things?" Dustless looked at Claire playfully. He rubbed his chin and laughed. "Of course I did. That old witch wanted to take advantage of me and almost ruin my chastity." Claire was completely speechless. Dustless's words sounded like a deliberate blow to her. "It's good that you're okay." Claire nodded slightly, a cute smile blossoming on her pretty face. Although her mouth was a bit vicious, it was undeniable that this proud girl was kind-hearted. That Dustless." At this moment, a slightly hesitant voice suddenly rang out. Dustless's gaze swept over. It was Alice, who had an unnatural expression on her face. Her face was full of hesitation, as if there was something that she couldn't say. "Don't tell me you also want to ask me how I was last night," Dustless said bluntly. "Of course not." After her thoughts were exposed, Alice's awkwardness disappeared in a flash. She then said with a red face, "After all, there's still the competition in 3 days. If you died, who would I vent my anger on?" "Then I'm sorry to disappoint you. My life is really tough." Dustless shrugged with a casual expression. "That's not right. Why is Dustless still alive and kicking? Didn't that old witch Gravasse teach him a lesson? This shouldn't be. It's definitely not scientific. On the other side, Godfeng Zhao also noticed Dustless. Seeing him flirting with a beauty early in the morning, he couldn't help but frown. When he was working as a maid in Gravasse's house, he had been tormented quite badly. On the other hand, Dustless's complexion was rosy at this moment. His eyebrows flickered with light, and he was in high spirits. He didn't look like he had been tortured at all. Could it be that old witch Gravasse has learned her lesson? Godfeng Zhao lowered his head in suspicion. He couldn't help but guess in his heart. Or, that old witch really wants to eat young grass and has fallen for this kid? Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Seeing Godfeng Zhao acting suspiciously, Dustless smiled without saying anything. He raised his voice and said, "That little mouse hiding in the corner, how long are you going to peep at the long legs of a beauty?" Dustless's words instantly attracted everyone's attention. Everyone's gaze shifted, and Godfeng Zhao also became the focus of everyone's attention. This shameless pervert, they are both boys, but why is there such a big difference between Dustless and him? Who knows? Maybe he is the reincarnation of a pervert. This guy is called Godfeng Zhao. Stay away from him when you see him in the future. A group of girls whispered and looked at Godfeng Zhao with disdain. Some teachers even used him as a negative example and warned the students to keep a distance from this kid. What does it have to do with me, who peeped at the long legs of a beauty? Godfeng Zhao looked at the girl's disdainful eyes and glared at Dustless. He gritted his teeth and walked over. If he continued to remain silent at this time, he would really be treated as a pervert. "Don't slander me, Dustless." Godfeng Zhao's face was as black as a black pot. He looked at Dustless confidently. Even though he knew that Dustless was weaker than him, he didn't think that Dustless would dare to mess around. After all, this was Griva's territory, and private fights were prohibited in this school. However, Dustless's next words made him spurt out blood. Dustless lazily raised his right hand and looked at the angry Godfeng Zhao with a smile. He then slapped him and said, "It is everyone's responsibility to punish a pervert." Ha! Dustless's sneak attack was too fast. Godfeng Zhao didn't even have time to dodge and was instantly sent flying. Ka ka ka! This slap was merciless and sent Godfeng Zhao flying more than 10 meters away. His body smashed into the wooden house next to the stable and smashed it into pieces. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2188. Pooh! Celestial being Feng Zhao was beaten to the point of vomiting blood. This seemingly weak slap actually contained a terrifying strength. His entire mouth was slapped crooked by Wu Chun. You dare to hit me?" Godfeng Zhao was enraged. He was stuttering as he stared at Dustless ferociously. His eyes were like those of a hungry wolf, filled with killing intent. "Did I hit the wrong person?" Dustless had an innocent look on his face as he said righteously, "You peeked at other people's beautiful legs. You should be grateful that I didn't gouge your eyes out." Dustless looked at him as if he should be grateful. "Bastard, you are framing me." Godfeng Zhao jumped up in anger. If he had really peeked at other people's legs, he wouldn't have been slapped in vain. However, Godfeng Zhao claimed that he was innocent. He didn't look at other people's legs at all. He had been plotting how to retaliate against Dustless. "Framing you? Then why are you hiding in the corner?" He obviously has a guilty conscience. Dustless chuckled. Although he was being unreasonable in everyone's ears, it was much more convincing than Godfeng Zhao's words. Since he didn't peek at other people's legs, why would he hide and peek? After all, Godfeng Zhao had been hiding in the corner sneakily. Furthermore, his eyes were flickering. He didn't look like a good person. "You bastard." Seeing the house that she had painstakingly built being destroyed, Alice was instantly enraged. "The two of you better stop before you go too far." She pointed her slender finger at Dustless and Godfeng Zhao and shouted, "Are you provoking me? Or are you doing it on purpose for me to see? If that's the case, I have to congratulate the two of you. The two of you have really angered me." Alice was like a tigress that had gone berserk. Spittle flew everywhere. She was always bullied by insinuations. Even a clay figurine would get angry. What does it have to do with me? Godfeng Zhao glared at Alice. Miraculously, his aura was on par with Alice's. Perhaps at this moment, he had found the feeling of being Lien a subtle. A kind person would be bullied. A kind horse would be ridden. Perhaps after being beaten up several times, Feng had already gained an epiphany. I'm sorry. I still have things to do. I don't have time to fight with this little demon. Goodbye. Wu Qin suddenly left. He stepped on the wind and left in a confident and at ease manner. This fellow really knows how to put on airs. Godfeng Zhao curled his lips. In fact, he was quite envious of Dustless's unrestrained manner. He could come and go as he pleased. It was just that he was unwilling to admit it. Soon after, his eyes gently rotated before he smiled and said, "If Dustless is willing to accept the punishment, I have nothing to say. Everything must be done according to the law. Don't try to fool me." Alice snorted and looked at Dustless. However, what made Alice angry was that Dustless completely ignored her and left directly. From start to finish, he didn't turn back. It was as if she wasn't talking about him. Stop right there. Seeing Dustless openly ignoring her, all the dissatisfaction in Alice's heart exploded. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A storm suddenly swept up in the blue sky. Immediately after, clear cries filled the sky, filled with endless arrogance. Looking up, a huge bird with full wings streaked across the sky. That's Alice's contracted spirit, Smolf. The surrounding students were all visibly moved, and they all understood that Alice was being serious. Hearing the arrogant cries, Dustless stopped in his tracks. He was slightly absent-minded as he looked up at the sky. A soaring eagle spread its wings and soared high in the sky. Other than Claire's contracted spirit, this was the second time he saw someone else's contracted spirit. How is it? Isn't it beautiful? Seeing that Dustless was in a daze as he stared at Smolf, who was soaring in the sky, Alice blinked her eyes and was extremely pleased with herself. Yes, it's really extraordinary. It seems to be of the wind attribute. After about a few seconds, Dustless retracted his gaze. However, he suddenly looked at Alice. But what does this have to do with me? You brat. Alice's pretty face flushed red in the next second. However, she was at a loss for words and couldn't refute. After all, what Dustless said was the truth. No matter how beautiful the spirit was, it had nothing to do with Dustless. Private fights are prohibited on campus. You hit someone and even smash mine. In short, you violated the school rules. Alice looked at Dustless with an unfriendly expression. Go ask that old witch who was watching the show. If she wants to find trouble with me and wants to punish me, then I have nothing to say. He pointed at the tall building in the distance. The windows were open, and the dean, Gravis, was looking at the scene with interest. Dean! Alice's expression changed slightly. A hint of surprise flashed across her eyes. She cursed in her heart. After this brat appeared, the dean seems to be more biased towards him. How is it? You have nothing to say, right? Wu Chun smiled complacently. His smug look made Alice want to beat him up. It was an eyesore. Why does this brat always get special treatment? Godfeng Zhao was also secretly depressed. He didn't know what made the always impartial witch side with Dustless. They are indeed a bunch of naive brats. I don't have any special treatment. In the end, it's just that this woman is afraid of my strength and is wary of me. Therefore, in some unnecessary situations, she also turns a blind eye. Dustless shook his head. Soon after, under Alice's unhappy gaze, he slowly left again. No one stopped him. Damn it. What's so different about this brat? At this moment, Alice could only stomp her feet in anger. Thinking about what Dustless said casually before, her expression was extremely interesting. She complained in her heart, Could it be, this brat really has something going on with the dean? This damn pretty boy, he used flowery words to bewitch the dean. It seemed like this was the only possibility. Otherwise, Alice really couldn't understand why Gravis was so biased towards Dustless. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2189. If Dustless and Grievous knew about this, especially Grievous, if he knew that Alice would slander him like this, he would definitely want to cry. After all, there was nothing between her and Dustless. There must be a problem. I know that old witch's personality. She will definitely seek revenge after being bullied by Dustless a few times. It's too strange that she didn't even move an inch after being bullied by Dustless. Feng Zhao bent over with a shrewd look on his face. His shining eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. You brat, stop right there. As a slave elf, you actually don't listen to your master. Claire jogged over. Her little face was flushed pink, looking very cute. Come here. Regardless of whether Dustless was willing or not, Claire pulled Dustless into a corner. Her shifty eyes scanned the surroundings. After confirming that there was no one around, she leaned close to Dustless and whispered in his ear, I couldn't tell that you're so capable. Even that cold Dean was taken care of by you. I do want to take care of her, but that old woman is like a block of wood, Dustless said, rolling his eyes. Block of wood. Claire was stunned. Immediately, she asked with a puzzled expression, What do you mean? Are you saying that she doesn't know how to have fun? That's not it. Dustless shook his head lightly. Although Grievous was very young and had fair skin and a beautiful appearance, his actual age was far beyond this stage. Once a person lived for a long time, some aspects of their instincts would gradually fade, such as the physical aspect. Forget it, get out of my way. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. I still want to test my contracted elf. Dustless waved his hand impatiently. You dare to make me leave? Bastard, do you want a rebel? Claire put her hands on her hips, overbearing. A mere slave elf was too arrogant. Do you want to turn to charcoal? Slave elf. Her beautiful big eyes locked onto Dustless. Claire had already taken out her long whip at some point. You're always asking for a beating every time we meet. With a flash, Dustless silently appeared behind Claire and lifted her skirt without any hesitation, revealing her pure and flawless skin. Pa asterisk pa. After a few consecutive slaps, the scarlet handprints almost covered her snow-white skin. You perverted beast, you dare to spank my butt. Claire's anger multiplied. Her flame-like red hair stood on end and flames burned around her body. Why wouldn't I dare? Anyway, you call me a big pervert every day. If I don't do something perverted, wouldn't I have been scolded for nothing? That would be a huge loss for me. Dustless blinked innocently, as if he was the one who was at a disadvantage. Claire was so angry that she trembled and couldn't even speak properly. She angrily said, Turn into charcoal for me, you perverted smelly. Aw, Claire Lucio, how embarrassing. You've even thrown away the basic etiquette of a noble. It's really embarrassing to do such a crude action. This sudden voice was like a demon's, without the slightest hint of warning. It always appeared when Claire was at her most unhappy. Oh, it's Linslet. The relationship between the two of you is really extraordinary. Dustless gazed at Linslet with a chuckle and said meaningfully, You always follow Claire wherever she goes. The relationship between the two of you is really good. I also find it strange, after hearing Dustless's words, Claire suddenly understood. She crossed her arms and asked arrogantly, Linslet, you're not secretly following me, are you? Or do you want to talk to me? Nonsense. Why would I want to talk to you? Linslet's hair stood on end. She didn't even stay silent and directly retorted, I only value your contracted spirit. That's all. No, he's not your contracted spirit yet. Dustless has never acknowledged you as his master. Squat down, call me master. It would have been better if Linslet hadn't said anything, but now that she did, Claire was immediately alarmed. She stared at Dustless with an unfriendly expression and raised her long whip high up in the air. This woman really knows how to cause trouble. Dustless glanced at Linslet in annoyance. If she wanted him to call Claire master, he might as well kill her. Aye, Claire Lucio, is this how you treat your contracted elf? Linslet looked at Claire mockingly. She suddenly changed her angle and threw herself at Dustless. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water and as fast as lightning. When he reacted, Dustless was also stunned. How about it? Are you interested in being my servant? There are countless benefits. Linslet leaned close to Dustless's ear and blew a mouthful of fragrant hot air. Mixed with her faintly discernible body fragrance, it made people absent-minded for a while. Especially when she mentioned benefits. Linslet deliberately emphasized the word benefits. She even stuffed Dustless's arm into her cleavage and deliberately shook it slowly. The subtle touch made Dustless frown slightly. This guy is really strange. Is he really a man? His skin is better than mine, his face is prettier than mine, and his body even has a fragrance. Are you kidding me? After taking a deep breath of Dustless's scent, Linslet's face was full of enjoyment. She didn't even realize that she was lying unconsciously in Dustless's arms at this moment. Female pervert, is it really okay for you to take advantage of me like this? Linslet looked like a hungry baby. All the pores on her body were open, as if she wanted to take all of Dustless's body scent. Suddenly releasing Dustless, Linslet pointed at Dustless's cheek and solemnly swore, "I've decided. From now on, you are my servant." Her bright eyes were dominated by a strong sense of possessiveness. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2190. What did you say? Say it again if you have the guts. Do you want to turn into charcoal too? Linslet. The long whip in Claire's hand swept out and pounced straight at Linslet. She didn't hold back in the slightest and pounced out like a poisonous snake covered in flames, using her full strength. Even when she came back to her senses, Claire was still in disbelief. She didn't want to attack Linslet at all. It was all like a reflex. However, Linslet wasn't to be trifled with either. With a light tap of her toes, she actually carried Dustless and left in a flash with the strength she didn't know where she got it from. Linslet was good at using ice. When she moved, a trace of ice divine might overflowed from her body, and her strength also doubled. In the blink of an eye, the water in the atmosphere was frozen and quickly turned into ice shards. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A cold wind blew and ice shards danced in the air. Linslet carried Dustless and swept through the ice. It was indescribably poetic, indescribably transcendent, as if they had descended from the sky. Even Claire couldn't help but be dazed and fascinated. At this moment, Dustless and Claire were like a pair of immortal couples, making others envious. This guy really knows how to fish for fools. If I wasn't a wily old fox, I might really have failed miserably today. Dustless glanced at Linslet from the corner of his eyes, only to see this proud girl looking down at Claire with a haughty air. However, the strange thing was that Linslet was actually savagely hugging Dustless, even wanting to merge his entire body into hers. You traitor! Claire, who had come back to her senses, threw away the long whip in her hand in anger. She was so angry that even sparkling and translucent tears were swirling in her eyes. Perhaps if she continued to watch the hateful Linslet hug Dustless, she would shed silent tears. Dustless angrily pushed Linslet away. Jealousy between women was the most terrifying battle. He walked in front of Claire and rubbed her head, comforting her. In my heart, you are still the most important and beautiful. After all, I've seen everything about you. I cannot take responsibility even if I want to. At least you still have some conscience. Dustless's words caused Claire's pretty face to blush. She naturally understood what he was talking about. When Dustless and Claire first met, she was still bathing in the forest, completely naked. It just so happened that Dustless, who had just transmigrated, had opened his eyes. What's so good about a flat-chested girl like Claire? Linslet's jealousy exploded. She glared at Claire and said without backing down, "Come to my room tonight. I'll show you what a truly peerless figure is." As soon as she finished speaking, Linley purposely raised her cleavage and looked at Claire provocatively. TSK, TSK, although this chick is a bit arrogant, her figure's really not bad. Moreover, she's still young. There's still a lot of room for growth in the future. Dustless nodded in wonder. Immediately, he felt as if he had been trapped by something. It was very hot. When did you start to act so quickly? Dustless was incomparably conflicted. He didn't know when it started, but his body had already been bound by the flame whip in Claire's hand. Do you really think I'm an ignorant little girl? Didn't you say it yourself? Everything has to be prepared for a rainy day. If you seize an opportunity, you absolutely can't hesitate. Now, do you feel like you've smashed your own foot with a rock? This is the trouble you've caused by flirting everywhere. Claire raised her head proudly. Seeing Dustless's extremely speechless expression, her little face immediately beamed with joy, and she smiled extremely happily. Smashing my own foot? That's just wishful thinking on your part. Dustless curled his lips. His body suddenly emitted a large amount of light. His entire body began to elementalize. A large amount of photons soared into the sky, flowing light escaping the whip's binding. It's impossible for your little tricks to give me a headache, even if you want to. In other places, the light gathered again. Dustless's figure once again appeared and solidified. His face was as still as an unmoving boulder, without any ripples. Damn it, what kind of trick is this? Magic? It doesn't seem like it. Claire stomped her feet with an angry expression. She pouted and looked rather cute. In her heart, she was secretly angry. This flirty man is too dangerous. I can't handle him alone. Do I need to find a few allies to help me? Thinking of allies, Claire's gaze subconsciously turned to Linslet. She had very few friends. Although Linslet bickered with her, she could barely be considered a friend. Little did she know that at this moment, Linslet was also extremely depressed. I don't seem to be this guy's opponent. Linslet was slightly angry and quite unhappy. She naively thought that as long as her strength suppressed Dustless and combined with her own wealth, it wouldn't be difficult to tame Dustless. But now, it seemed that she had taken it for granted. Not only did she not conquer Dustless by showing her own strength, but Linslet also felt that she had stepped into a swamp and was sinking deeper and deeper. Girls nowadays are really precocious. Seeing the two girls in love, Dustless sighed softly and suddenly turned his head. The speed at which his face changed was faster than flipping a book. Previously, he was still smiling, but now, in the blink of an eye, he had turned into a cold-faced Hades. And you, after hiding and watching for so long, I thought you would consciously stand up. Who would have thought that you would continue to peek? You're not satisfied at all. Although I know that I'm very charming and handsome, you can't stop staring at me. But you can't keep staring at me. I'm getting embarrassed. What about you, Miss Lestia? This mysterious person who was hiding and observing secretly was the contract spirit of God Fengzhou, Lestia. Dustless had discovered her a long time ago. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2191. Aw, your senses are really sharp. I thought no one would be able to discover my existence. Who would have thought that I would fall in the hands of a few children today? The newcomer had gorgeous black hair that blended into the night, as well as eyes that reflected the sunlight and released an incredible luster. She wore the clothes of the Fey race, and her limbs were as beautiful as slender glass. Her exposed skin was as white as snow. Her cute cheeks were as flawless as a porcelain doll. Even though the girl looked very young and immature, her every move was full of charm and aroused one's heart. Young man, what's your name? Lightly stroking her beautiful hair, the 3,000 willow strands fluttered in the wind. She opened her mouth and giggled. How rare. You're one of the rare people who can discover my existence. Moreover, you're a male Fey. Speaking up to here, a strange look flashed across Restia's eyes. You want to kill me? If you have such unrealistic thoughts, I advise you to quickly give up. Don't learn from that old witch, Grievous, and ask for trouble. Dustless asked calmly. Even though the cold light in Restia's eyes disappeared in an instant, he still clearly caught that boiling chill. There was only one successor to the Demon King. In other words, between Godfeng Zhao and Dustless, one of them was destined to be a stepping stone. It was obvious that Restia would not help Dustless. Without a doubt, she would choose her lover, Godfeng Zhao. Who is this bad woman? Claire and Linslet asked vigilantly. Restia's evil aura and seductive charm made the two of them unable to be careless. They felt an extremely dangerous feeling. Lewd beast, pay attention to your identity. I'm your master. Claire suddenly stood beside Dustless and looked at Restia with vigilance. Linslet was also the same, her fair face filled with vigilance. Ah! Restia smiled as she examined the two girls. Seeing their nervous appearance, she teased, I'm not stealing this little guy. You don't have to mind. Little guy? Hearing this, Dustless's expression was extremely strange. He also smiled and asked, What, am I a big guy or a little guy? Could it be that you've peeped on me? No wonder I always feel like I'm being stared at when I'm taking a shower these past few days. Sigh, you've seen everything. How am I going to face you in the future? You're responsible, Mademoiselle Restia. How about this? I'll suffer a little, and you'll be my contract spirit. I guarantee that you'll live a good life in the future, and you'll want to die. Celestia's smile froze. Her watery eyes widened as she thought to herself, where does this guy get his courage from? How dare you tease me? I don't know if you're confident or ignorant. This guy's mouth really deserves a beating. Linslet and Claire rolled their eyes, completely speechless. Dustless's words were complete nonsense. After all, he had just arrived at Alicia Elven Academy yesterday, and even spent a night at the principal's house. How could Lysia have seen him? Ha ha! The two girls thought that Celestia would go berserk, but who would have thought that this seductive girl only laughed? If you want to have a night with me that makes one's imagination run wild, I never said that I would refuse. The corner of Celestia's mouth curled up slightly. Shortly after, she said meaningfully, Of course, before that, there is a condition. You have to tell me your background. Signing contracts with elves was Witch G's privilege. It was too strange for Dustless to suddenly appear. Who can you fool with a verbal promise? Dustless sneered as he stared at Celestia. You slutty fox, you actually want to do that kind of thing with him in broad daylight? Claire's face was hot as she glared at Celestia furiously. Also, Dustless is my slave spirit. Slave spirit? If that's the case, then the relationship between the two of you is quite important. Celestia's eyes rolled a few times, and a cold glint flashed through her eyes. If you dare to make a move against the two of them, I guarantee that within 10 minutes, that brat Godfeng Zhao will be cut into 8 pieces and his corpse will be fed to the dogs. You care a lot about that brat, right? After all, you were once his contracted spirit. Dustless smiled as he sized Celestia up. Such a hair-raising warning was said in a smiling tone. Even with Celestia's temperament, she still felt a chill run down her spine. No wonder that old Witch Grievous only turned a blind eye to him. This brat is indeed extraordinary. He's more terrifying than I imagined. Celestia's thoughts of kidnapping Claire vanished like smoke in thin air. She blinked her watery eyes and looked at Dustless with astonishment. You actually know that I'm Godfeng Zhao's contracted spirit? Of course. Dustless's face was full of pride. Shortly after, he chuckled as he looked at Celestia. He said bluntly, I also know that your fat too is white. Uffed. Celestia didn't get angry. Instead, a beautiful smile bloomed on her face. How can I wear white? I'm not a naive little girl like your two lovers. I'm wearing black. Speaking up to this point, the words at the corner of Lysia's mouth stopped abruptly. She looked at Wu Chan furiously and snorted softly. You actually try to trick me in public and in front of your two lovers? Celestia felt rather sullen. Who would have thought that she would be tricked by Dustless when she wasn't paying attention? I'm a very philanthropic person. Dustless looked straight at Celestia without blinking and chuckled. I've killed countless people in my life, but I've never tried to climb the Mount Wu with a spirit. Why don't we give it a try? I'll reluctantly make a loss. You can go up, and I'll go down. Celestia almost vomited blood. If it weren't for Dustless's mysteriousness and unknown strength, she would definitely tear this brat apart alive. His words were really asking for a beating. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 50 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2192. Restia's phoenix eyes were spitting fire. Her well-developed cleavage was undulating with anger. After living for so long, this was the first time Restia had seen such a despicable brat. What was the worst to hear? What was the most infuriating thing to say? Not cute at all. You have such a cute little face, but this. Restia took a deep breath and suppressed the throbbing in her heart. But this stinky mouth of yours is too despicable. You have glib words and don't know how to win the goodwill of others. Brat, do you know what it means to have tender feelings for the fair sex? If you're so heartless, you'll definitely be a bachelor in the future. Hey, you can't say that. Dustless felt very innocent. He stared at Restia and said seriously, I'm insulting you because I'm on your side. If I didn't know you, I wouldn't even look at someone like you. According to what you're saying, should I feel honored? Restia was going crazy. How unbelievably narcissistic and shameless was this brat. Of course, from the moment I saw you, I was sure that you were on my side. Dustless nodded slightly and stared at Restia without restraint. He clapped and said, This figure, tisk-tisk-k? Not bad. You have both a butt and a chest. If I can't take you into my arms and share a bed with you, it'll be a big regret in life. Pervert. Claire's spittle flew everywhere. She stared at Dustless with extreme dissatisfaction and clenched her fists tightly. She cursed in her heart. This stinky brat doesn't put me in his eyes at all. Am I the slave elf, or is he? Why did our identities change? Pervert. This time, even Linslet, who didn't get along with Claire, was so angry that she pursed her lips. She looked at Dustless with clear dissatisfaction in her beautiful eyes. These two women are really possessive. It said that women are very scary when they go crazy. Now it seems that it's true. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. These two wanted to swallow him alive. How about it? What about the conditions I told you before? Dustless looked at Restia and asked directly, completely ignoring the feelings of the two women. Chuckling, he said, I promise to make you wish you were dead and unable to get out of bed. However, the prerequisite is that you must pledge your allegiance to me. Really? Are you that powerful? A glint of light flashed in Celestia's eyes as a pleasantly surprised smile appeared on her face. She seemed to be tempted by Dustless's suggestion. Haha, who are you trying to fool? Do you think I'm an idiot who doesn't know anything? You want to trick me into giving you important information without paying a price? How can it be so simple and cheap? Dustless sneered in his heart. Grievous was also interested in Dustless's background and wanted to scheme against him, but what happened in the end? In the end, she was caught in her own trap and was forced to wear the maid costume by Wu Chun. But in order to show your sincerity, you have to agree to a condition of mine. Dustless looked at Restia with a wicked smile on his face. What conditions? Let's hear it. If it's not too much, I can agree to it. Being scrutinized by Dustless's teasing eyes, Restia felt uneasy and had a bad feeling that a disaster was about to befall her. Give me a kiss, and I will believe that you will pledge your allegiance to me. If you refuse such a thing, what's the point of talking about it? Dustless pointed at his face and said generously, But I have always been a generous and selfless person. I don't like to force people. If you want to reject my condition, there's another way. What other way? I will definitely agree to it. Restia couldn't wait to kiss Dustless. What a joke. Although Dustless was very handsome, undeniably much more handsome than God Fenzeo, Restia's heart had already been stolen by someone else. How could she kiss Dustless? There was absolutely no possibility of that happening. Sign a contract with me, Dustless said indifferently. As long as you choose one of them and become my possession, I will tell you my origin and identity. You are clearly forcing me. I will not agree to it. Restia rejected loudly. Both methods required physical intimacy, especially the second method. If she wanted to sign a contract with Dustless, she would have to kiss him. Then we will take our leave. Dustless shrugged. It didn't matter to him. He could take it or let it go. If he rejected it, then so be it. After all, he wouldn't lose anything. Stop right there. Restia's gaze was hesitant. Thinking about how mysterious and terrifying Dustless was, she could only grit her teeth and say, I will agree to your condition. But after it is done, you have to tell me your origin and strength. Dustless didn't say anything. He just smiled and nodded. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A fragrant wind suddenly blew and Restia disappeared. Mwah. The next moment, Dustless frowned slightly. He felt that his face had been carved by someone. If he wasn't wrong, it should be the wind around him. Is that enough? The cool breeze condensed into Celestia's figure. Her face flushed red. It was obvious that she was the one who had just stolen a kiss from Dustless. However, Celestia had used a little trick and wasn't discovered by Claire and Linslet. However, Dustless's following reply made Restia stumble and fall to the ground. Can what? I don't know anything. Also, hurry up and kiss me before I go back on my words. Otherwise, the price won't be just a kiss. I still have other conditions. Dustless urged loudly. The depths of his eyes were full of teasing. Brat, are you trying to be shameless? Dustless, right? Don't play dumb with me. Don't tell me you didn't feel anything just now. You better not provoke me. Restia was really angry. If it weren't for the danger Dustless was in, she would have already torn this guy apart. Could he be any more shameless? P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2193. Dustless treated Restia's threat as a fart. Not only was he not afraid, he even said disdainfully, Do you think I'll kill Godfengzhao first, or you'll kill me first? Can you not be so shameless? Hearing that Wu Chun threatened to kill Celestial Being Feng Zhao, Celestial Being Feng Zhao immediately cowered. Her tone was much gloomier as she clenched her silver teeth. She was so angry that she was trembling. It wasn't hard to see that if she had the confidence to kill Wu Chun, she would definitely tear this despicable and shameless brat into pieces. I really didn't feel it. Dustless blinked his eyes with an innocent and pure face. Do it again. I promise I'll concentrate on feeling it this time. Seeing Claire and Linslet, Dustless's eyes were filled with a gentle smile. Did you two see it? Claire and Linslet were at a loss for words. Usually, they would definitely make things difficult for Dustless, but now that they were facing a great enemy, no matter how unreliable Dustless was, he was still one of them. I didn't see it. Even though the two of them were extremely unhappy, they could only endure it. However, Claire looked at Dustless with resentment. That angry look clearly said, I'll settle this with you later. These two little girls, although they are a little stubborn and proud, it's not a big problem overall. They know how to choose between right and wrong. Dustless nodded slightly and couldn't help but give the two a thumbs up. Restia's words came to an abrupt end as she fell silent. She had also seen Dustless's character clearly. If she scolded this brat, he would definitely go from bad to worse. At that time, the losses would be even greater and the gains would not make up for the losses. You win, but I'll remember this grudge in my heart. Helpless for a moment, Celestia kissed Dustless again. In the end, she chose to swallow this resentment. It wouldn't be too late to teach this brat a lesson after investigating Dustless's actual situation. What do you want me to tell you? Wiping off the water stains on his cheeks, Wu Chun winked at Celestia and smiled. He was as cheap as he could be. Tell me your background, and how did you become an elf envoy? Celestia changed the topic to something more serious. She was puzzled as to why Dustless became an elven envoy. Could there really be two demon kings reincarnated? Celestia guessed in confusion. That's simple. It's because I'm a genius. I can't be looked at like an ordinary person. Dustless explained. Actually, the reason why he had become a male elf user was because he had killed Godfengzhao in the system. That was how he had obtained everything from him. That's your answer? You're not just brushing me off, are you? Celestia snorted. Not wanting to waste any more time, she asked, what about your strength? That's hard to say. The last time I fought with my full strength was a few hundred years ago. In the next few hundred years, no one made me use my full strength. Dustless fell into his memories and answered meticulously. Nonsense, do you think I'm a child? How can you be a few hundred years old? Celestia said angrily. It's up to you to believe it or not. Anyway, I've already answered your question. Dustless shrugged and suddenly said, in short, I've already achieved my goal. All that's left is to watch the show. At the end, Dustless laughed evilly again. Watch the show? Frowning, Celestia said indifferently, I won't admit it even if you tell others about it. There's no proof. No one will believe you anyway. Then what if someone saw you kissing me? Dustless asked with a smile. Then I'll kill him. Celestia's beautiful face was filled with anger. Her whole body was cold like a frozen corpse. She didn't smile and was completely different from the Celestia who was talking and laughing with Dustless. I'm just afraid that you won't be willing to do it. After all, that kid is too important to you. Dustless laughed evilly. Soon after, he whispered, come out, stinking brat. Celestia, why did you do that? A gloomy roar suddenly sounded. Celestial being Fengzhao suddenly walked out with a pale face. His eyes were filled with grief and anger. Looking at the lipstick mark on Dustless's cheek, he felt that he had been cuckolded. You actually kissed Dustless? This guy is my old enemy. Celestial being Fengzhao wailed bitterly. Although there were various reasons that he couldn't do anything about, it was still a huge blow to Celestial being Fengzhao. It was no less than being struck by lightning. It was even worse than being killed. Celestial being Fengzhao appeared. Celestial being Fengzhao's beautiful face instantly turned as pale as snow. She knew that this kid had seen everything. Celestial being Fengzhao, you heard it too, right? Dustless looked at Celestial being Fengzhao with a smile and said in disdain, Celestia is now mine. As for you, scram to wherever you want to go. I'm going to take Celestia away to give birth to a nest of children. Poochie. Dustless's words were like a sharp knife that pierced into Celestial being Fengzhao's body, crushing his internal organs and causing him to spurt out a mouthful of blood. Celestial being, don't listen to his nonsense. Celestia hurriedly explained. At the same time, she glared at Dustless fiercely. Obviously, she was warning him not to spout nonsense. However, Dustless was the kind of person who didn't know what was good for him. Nonsense? What a joke. Celestial being Fengzhao witnessed you kissing me just now. Do you still want to go back on your words? Dustless didn't hesitate to add fuel to the fire. Besides, didn't you say that you want to have a beautiful night with me? Sure, I'll agree to it. However, you want to be on top of you. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. Celestial being Fengzhao spurted out a few mouthfuls of blood and fainted unwillingly. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2194. It was no wonder that God Fengzhao was so infuriated to the point of vomiting blood. It was one thing for him to be crushed by Dustless in terms of strength, but now, even the home of his soul, Reztia, was exchanging flirtatious glances with Dustless. Who would be able to accept such a blow? Such a huge blow was like his beloved suddenly throwing herself at the enemy who killed her father. It was already a miracle that God Fengzhao wasn't angered to death. God Monarch, are you all right? Lizia was so frightened that she trembled and hurriedly ran over. Did I allow you to leave? His cold tone contained a meaning that couldn't be disobeyed. Lizia's body stiffened, and she stopped in her tracks. The moment she turned her head, her killing intent was like an unstoppable tide. Didn't I say before that you are now mine? What? Are you going to break your promise now? Dustless asked indifferently. He was indescribably calm and natural. However, Celestia's soul was trembling as she felt an invisible pressure pressing down on her chest. Do you know what I hate the most in my life? Dustless's bright eyes suddenly became deep as he sank into his memories. His tone was also filled with vicissitudes. What I want must be mine, regardless of whether it is a person or an object. You can raise conditions or complain, but you can't go against the rules I set. What will happen if I go against them? Lysia asked expressionlessly. What will happen? Dustless chuckled. With a wave of his hand, a rock on the ground flew into his hand. Shortly after, with a slight force, the rock that was as hard as a diamond instantly turned into powder. This is the outcome. With a light blow, the remaining powder between his palm and fingers was blown away by the wind. Are you threatening me? Lysia was furious as a wave of energy that could topple mountains and overturn seas appeared in her body. Boom, boom, boom. The shock wave landed on Dustless and the others. Claire and Linslet's expressions changed greatly. In an instant, it was as if the stars had shifted and they had arrived in another space-time. The gravity here was several times that of the previous world. It was incomparably difficult for them to walk. Their faces were red and their necks were thick. They could suffocate at any time. This is your strength? It's really too weak. With contempt in his eyes, an even stronger energy wave broke out of the cage. Boom, boom, boom. Energy ripples that could be seen with the naked eye swept out like an unstoppable tsunami that could destroy the heavens and earth. In the blink of an eye, Lysia's aura was shattered. She was also forced to retreat and almost fell to the ground. How can he be so strong? If I am the reincarnation of a demon king, then what is this guy? Reincarnation of a demon god? When God Fengzhao saw this scene, he broke down. His eyes were lifeless and at a loss. When he saw Reztia being forced to retreat, he stood there in a daze. All along, Reztia had been his pillar of support. Now that his spiritual faith had been destroyed, how could God Fengzhao have the courage to face Dustless? That you, of you that you of that, of you, it's me ditto you. At this moment, Dustless's playful heart had completely vanished. His black eyes were like splashes of ink, emitting a chilling aura that made people not dare to look at him directly. Raising their heads slightly and meeting those star-like eyes, they would feel ashamed of their own inferiority. The person in front of them was a wandering immortal with a cold and noble temperament. How could he be the frivolous hooligan from before? Everything that happened before seemed to be a deliberate disguise. If you stop now and come to my side, I could be merciful and let this brat go. Dustless spat out a chilling aura. He carefully examined the unresigned Lysia and said in a deep voice, You can say that I am barbaric, overbearing, and unreasonable. However, this is the privilege of strong. It's just like what that old witch Grievous did. She wanted me to put on a maid's uniform, but I stripped her naked and put on a maid's uniform while she was still alive. She still pinched her nose and endured it. Can't this bastard talk less? He even purposely pokes at other people's scars. He is even more of a demon king than a demon king. Dean Gravis, who was shocked by the aura from before, hurried over. Who would have thought that he would hear Dustless scolding him? He was so angry that he didn't dare to flare up. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Come here. Beckoning with his finger, Dustless said to Lysia, Before my patience runs out, you are not allowed to go. God Fengzhao's face was ferocious. He clenched his fists tightly and sweat flowed down his face. I just like this kind of scene where the male lead is heartbroken. Dustless chuckled. He was indescribably annoyed with the protagonist's halo. Why should all the good things belong to the original protagonist? Especially a trash like God Fengzhao. Dustless can destroy him with a wave of his hand. Why should all the good things belong to him? Unfair. Even if he didn't have any feelings for Lysia and everything before was just teasing her, Dustless still wanted to be snatched away by her. It would be great if he could anger God Fengzhao to death. Although he could crush 10,000 God Fengzhao with his strength, Dustless still liked to see his heartbroken appearance. When did I start to have such a bad taste? Dustless shook his head and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Dustless pointed at God Fengzhao and said coldly, "Quickly come over and massage my shoulders and legs. Otherwise, I will kill this brat." A dazzling light shot out from his hand. Poochie! This scorching light pierced through God Feng Zhao's shoulder, leaving behind a shocking hole. Don't think that I am too much of a bully. Who asked this to be the world of the strong? Don't say that I don't have the demeanor of a strong person. I'm already very friendly. Otherwise, I could do even more crazy things. I will let you see what it means to bully the weak. Why don't I tell you directly? I am a person who likes to bully the weak. Dustless said without blushing or panting. He didn't feel that he was shameless at all. Living in this world, one should be unrestrained. If one was restrained by the views of others, then what was the point of becoming strong? P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2195. Everyone looked at each other and saw the astonishment in each other's eyes. Such shameless words were said by Dustless in such an open and above-board manner. It really refreshed everyone's understanding of him. What are you looking at? Did I say something wrong? Noticing that everyone was looking at him strangely, Dustless continued. The stupid one is God Feng Zhao. He provoked an enemy who is countless times stronger than him. Isn't that digging his own grave? Isn't it wrong to say that he is stupid? Dustless's words completely removed the suspicion of him bullying the weak. Everyone looked at God Feng Zhao like idiots. That's right. This guy knows that he is not Dustless's opponent, yet he still deliberately provoked him. Isn't he courting death? Who said he isn't? What a hothead. He is ugly and has no eyes for anyone. The surrounding female students looked at God Feng Zhao with strange eyes. They pointed at him and shook their heads in disdain. In fact, it didn't matter who was right or wrong. The key was who was stronger. God Feng Zhao's strength was not as good as Dustless's. Even if he was right, he was now an unreasonable person. Everyone looked at him with disdain and ridicule. It couldn't be helped. Every world paid particular attention to the strong. Just like Griva's, that old witch, she was also subdued by Dustless. Are you guys all fence-sitters? God Feng Zhao's face was gloomy, as if he had eaten a fly. He was extremely uncomfortable. Being pointed at by countless people, no matter how calm he was, he couldn't help but be angry. It's you who is too stupid. Dustless looked at God Feng Zhao with pity and said, There's a saying that a wise man submits to circumstances. Sometimes, blindly going against the current will only lead you further away from this world. Do you understand? I don't understand. God Feng Zhao valiantly locked on a Dustless with an unknown source of confidence. Then I'll be merciful and let you see clearly what the nature of this world is like. Dustless smiled faintly. Soon after, he hooked his finger at Restia, indicating for her to come over. This guy is too stupid. Claire looked at the miserable divine being Feng Zhao and secretly scolded him for not being tactful. Based on her understanding of Dustless, if this guy had been willing to lower his head, he might have already turned the matter into a small one. However, his unyielding attitude had completely aroused Dustless's interest. That's too unwise. You're clearly no match for him, so why do you have to ask for trouble? Linslet cursed inwardly. At the same time, she gave God Feng Zhao the title of a fool. Don't go there, Lestia. Celestial being Feng Zhao was like a gambler who had lost a lot. He roared with rage. Get this straight, no matter what, you are still my contracted spirit. Although they had already parted ways, no matter what, Lestia was still God Feng Zhao's contracted spirit in the past. Stinking brat, you still dare to challenge me? Dustless sneered in his heart. At the same time, he gestured with his thumb and said coldly, Now Lestia is mine. If you don't like it, then stand up and hit me. These words were like a meteorite falling from the sky, smashing God Feng Zhao into a daze. He stuttered for a long time, unable to say anything. If he had the strength, he would have already eliminated Dustless, this thorn in his side. However, he was no match for him. Still not coming over? Lightly gazing at Celestia, who had a gloomy expression, the corners of Wu Chen's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a gentle smile. "What are you trying to do?" This gentle smile was the smile of a demon in Lestia's eyes. She looked up and saw Dustless's finger once again condensing a golden flash and aiming it at Godfeng Zhao. This time, Dustless was no longer fooling around. The dangerous light beam was directly aimed at Godfeng Zhao's head. "Stop it!" Lestia could no longer maintain her calm. Her lips curled into a sad but beautiful smile. In the end, she slowly walked towards Dustless. "Lestia, hurry up and make it clear to me. I am no longer your contracted spirit since a long time ago." Turning her head and looking coldly at Godfeng Zhao, Lestia's words were like a steel machine. It was as if she never knew Godfeng Zhao. "Your acting is very good." Seeing this, Dustless only smiled without saying anything. Even if Lestia covered it up perfectly, he could still see the sadness in the depths of her eyes. "Ma." Under Godfeng Zhao's dazed gaze, Lestia's lips landed on Dustless's cheek again. Moreover, like a little girl in love, her entire body softened in Dustless's embrace. Bang! This epic scene gave Godfeng Zhao a blow that was no less than killing him directly. Stretching out his two legs, Godfeng Zhao finally fainted from the blow. "Hurry up and send him to the infirmary. What are you still standing there for?" Dean Grievous scolded the surrounding students. At the same time, he glared fiercely at Dustless, who was beaming with joy. This old woman. Seriously, it seems like she has forgotten the lesson from last time. She dares to provoke me again. Dustless helplessly rubbed his nose. In his heart, he was already planning how to deal with this old witch Grievous. Following Godfeng Zhao's fainting, this sudden incident came to an end. Everyone left one after another. "You have achieved your goal. Didn't you just want to give God a mental blow and make him collapse? What a vicious and sinister fellow. Can you take your hand away now?" A voice that was as cold as winter entered his left ear. Dustless was slightly stunned. Turning his head to look, the person that entered his sight was Lestia, whose small face was covered with a layer of frost. At this moment, Dustless was hugging her snake-like waist. Lestia couldn't escape even if she wanted to. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 tips plus updates, 1,000 rating votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2196. Oh, don't be so heartless, Restia. No matter what, you are still my contracted spirit. Why do you have to put on such a cold face? You are such a beauty, so why do you have to be upset over a piece of trash? I really feel sorry for you. Although this is the first time we have met, from the first time I saw you, Restia, I have already determined that you are my contracted spirit. No one can change that. Dustless said with a delicate and serious tone. Don't give me that. With such flowery words, you must have deceived a lot of women, right? Restia said with a straight face, obviously not falling for it. You can't say that. How can my true feelings be flowery words? Dustless shook his head and said calmly, everything has two sides. You have only seen the evil side of me, but my kind side has been denied. You are kind? Restia stared at Dustless as if she had discovered a new continent. She curled her lips and said, this joke is as boring and laughable as if today is the end of the world. Your hair is long and your knowledge is short. Dustless was not angry. He explained softly, today, Godfeng Zhao was humiliated by me. He will definitely work harder in the future. Isn't that the good side? Are you asking me to thank you? Restia's face immediately turned red. Because of you, my relationship with Godfeng Zhao might be completely broken. Isn't that great? Dustless looked at Restia without a care and said domineeringly, you are my contracted spirit. It is necessary for you to destroy the contract with Godfeng Zhao. You are my person in life and my ghost in death. Even if you reincarnate as an immovable stone in your next life, I will still be the stonemason who polishes and carves you. You are too much. Celestia was so angry that her whole body was trembling. Her eyes that were as clear as water glanced at Wuchen. Her body suddenly flashed with a purple light, and soon after, she turned into a stream of light and disappeared. "Why didn't you make her stay?" Claire and Linslet asked doubtfully. From their point of view, with Dustless's style, he would definitely crush Lysia until she was convinced. "Isn't that too boring? Women aren't meant to be beaten up. Moreover, Restia is a very special woman," Dustless explained mysteriously with an unfathomable expression. "Stop pretending to be mysterious. What's so special about this woman? She still has 2 balls and a butt. If there's anything special about her, it would be that her 2 balls are slightly bigger than mine," Claire said disdainfully with her arms crossed in front of her. At the same time, she looked at her chest with extreme displeasure. Her resentful eyes clearly said, "Why can't you become bigger?" You're right." Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but widen his eyes. He gave Claire's valiant reasoning a thumbs up, inwardly admiring her. This little girl was indeed skilled and daring. But Dustless narrowed his eyes slightly and said with incomparable wisdom, "Lysia's body has already submitted to me, but her will is still persevering. She still has hope for Godfeng Zhao. So my next task is to crush her inner perseverance and trample on her last faint ray of hope until it's worthless." Linslet and Claire looked at each other. They naturally knew that the flame that Lysia had high hopes for was actually that brat, Godfeng Zhao. It was midnight. After displaying his astonishing strength, Dustless naturally felt that Grievous' attitude towards him had become much gentler. At least when they spoke, they were now on equal footing. It's good to be strong. You can do whatever you want, and there will be people fawning over you. Even if you do something wrong, no one will criticize you. Instead, you can misrepresent a deer as a horse. No wonder no matter when the world pursues powerful strength. Even I am no exception. In a luxurious room, Dustless sat on the sofa and sighed with emotion. Opposite him was Grievous. "This is really rare." Looking at Dustless in astonishment, Grievous said in an incomparably strange manner, "I didn't expect someone like you to be so sentimental." Since Dustless was so powerful, he must have gone through a lot of life and death tortures. His current melancholy appearance really surprised Grievous. What's so strange about it? No matter how powerful and profound a person is, how terrifying his existence is, and how destructive his strength is, there was once a period of time when he was young and inexperienced. Dustless spoke frankly and frankly, his tone undulating. Before becoming strong, who didn't tuck their tail between their legs and behave. But then again, Dustless's blank gaze regained some clarity. Gazing at Grievous, he frowned and asked, "It's the middle of the night. You didn't call me here to lament about life, right? Don't disturb my sleep." What a rude brat." Gruaz let out a muffled groan. Her pajamas couldn't help but tremble slightly, causing her snow-white skin to slide down. Her 2 shoulders were exposed under Dustless's eyelids. Just a little more, and her majestic cleavage would be revealed. Although a rose with thorns has a unique charm, but I'm not interested right now. Say what you want, don't waste my time. Dustless's calm gaze only glanced at Grievous, then left without any reluctance. "You have a strong will," Grievous praised. She could see that Dustless wasn't interested in her. "It's not that I have a strong will. There's no man in this world who isn't lustful." Dustless stared at Grievous for a few more times, then said in an unusually serious manner, "If you can't successfully seduce others, it only means that your looks are average and can't move the other party." Hearing this, Grievous spat out all the red wine that she drank from the bottom of her heart. She looked at Dustless furiously. Wasn't this brat mocking her for being ugly? "I won't lower myself to your level. I'm a great person who doesn't hold a grudge against a petty person." Grievous took a deep breath and suppressed her boiling anger. Then, she looked outside the door and said expressionlessly, "All right, you can come in now. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2197. This is Dustless couldn't help but be startled. He looked over and saw that the person who had walked into the room was Alice. Unfortunately, the girl's face was red and her head was lowered. She didn't dare to look at Dustless's eyes. She was like a little girl who had done something wrong and felt guilty. She lowered her head and looked at the ground nervously. This is strange. Why would the proud leader of the Knights look at me like this? Could it be that someone else has possessed her? Dustless was surprised. He knew Alice's pride very well. She usually looked at him with a valiant and spirited look. She was never at a loss like she was now. What kind of show is this? A honey trap? Dustless looked at Grievous. His clear eyes didn't blink as he waited for her answer. Do you still remember the agreement? Grievous didn't answer, but asked instead. Agreement? You're talking about the competition, right? You're really an old woman who doesn't know her place. You call the competition an agreement. Even if you lose, you want to have a good reputation? Dustless curled his lips to express his disdain. You little brat. Grievous was secretly angry. She couldn't help but scold him. Can't you show the magnanimity that a strong person should have? There's a saying that goes, let people off if you can. That depends on the person. If the other party is a beauty, I prefer to talk about the demeanor of a man rather than the demeanor of a strong person. Dustless said. He then added, if you have something to say, just say it. It's best if you don't waste my time. I'm a very busy person. You're still busy? You're busy making things difficult for others. Grievous complained in her heart, but didn't dare to say it out loud. Even though they had only known each other for a short time, she understood Dustless's character. He would seek revenge for every little thing. Even if he said something bad, he would retaliate 100 times. It would be a tragedy if she was angered to death. I admit defeat in the previous competition. Alice suddenly interrupted. She looked at Dustless with bright eyes and threw away all the dissatisfaction in her heart. She took a deep breath and said, according to the previous bet, I am willing to become your servant. When she said this, Alice's eyes were no longer as bright as before. Instead, they were filled with indescribable confusion and dullness. Her life was supposed to be open and above board, but it ended so mysteriously. How could she not be depressed? No wonder you're dressed like this. Realization dawned on Dustless. He raised his head and saw Alice dressed in a black and white maid uniform. She was looking at Dustless cautiously, looking extremely respectful and serious. However, Dustless could see the deep disappointment in her eyes. Leave. I don't need a servant. After a moment of silence, Dustless said something shocking. Not only was Alice stunned, even the languid Grievous couldn't help but be stunned. She couldn't hide the confusion in her eyes. Even though Dustless and Alice hadn't competed yet, there was no doubt that the person who lost in the end was undoubtedly Alice. According to the original bet, Alice, who lost, had to become Dustless's servant. However, Dustless rejected her. This was really strange. Did I hear wrongly? This kid is actually so kind. It's a miracle. Grievous looked shocked. In her opinion, Dustless was the kind of bad guy who wouldn't give in to others. Now that he suddenly gave up, it was really unexpected. Don't be surprised. Dustless snorted and looked at Grievous unkindly. He said coldly, if you don't mind, I'm willing to let you, an ageless witch, be my servant. Can I ask why? Alice's face was filled with joy, but at the same time, she felt a little defeated. She subconsciously touched her face. Am I not worthy of him? Am I not even qualified to be this guy's servant? When she thought up to here, Alice became furious again, and the gaze she looked at Dustless with had a little more displeasure and resentment. Women are indeed fickle. As a wily old fox, Dustless naturally saw Alice's displeasure immediately. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After sorting out his thoughts, he slowly said, you are still a beautiful girl in the bud. There are still good times in the future. If you're tired of living one day and feel that life is boring, I can promise you to be my servant. You wish. Alice shook her head like a rattle drum and said happily, since you said so, don't regret it. Hoping that I will be your servant in the future is simply wishful thinking. Is that so? Then let's wait and see. Who knows? You might come and beg me one day. Dustless stared at the stubborn girl, and his mind went into a trance. For a moment, he couldn't help but be reminded of the past. When he was still an ignorant youth, Alice's stubborn eyes were very similar to his. Therefore, Dustless gave Alice a chance. Is there anything else? I can leave now. Dustless stretched and looked impatient. Do I annoy you that much here? No matter what, you have slept here for a night. Pay attention to your attitude, brat. Grievous' good impression of Dustless disappeared instantly. You're the one who should pay attention to your attitude. If you call me Stinky Brat again, I guarantee that you'll be begging for death. Dustless revealed a naughty smile, causing Grievous to have goosebumps all over her body. This guy's a demon. Grievous felt a chill in her heart. At the same time, she waved her hand and signaled Dustless to go wherever it was cool and not disturb her in the future. Dustless didn't play by the rules at all. The speed at which he changed his attitude was faster than flipping the pages of a book. Goodbye. Dustless didn't say anything else and turned around to leave. Previously, he didn't know why Claire called for him. Since he was free, he might as well go and take a look. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 0 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2198. Some are happy while some are sad. Some were happy while others were sad. Alice was naturally so excited that she was speechless. After all, Wu Chun had suddenly canceled the bet with her, and she didn't have to be Wu Chen's servant anymore. She was so happy that she was jumping for joy. As for the other person, Godfeng Zhao, he was naturally depressed. Is there any way to defeat Dustless? In a broken house beside the stinky stable, Godfeng Zhao was lying on a thick pile of grass with a black face. His whole body was lifeless, and there was no sign of life. Dustless's slap on the face was too powerful. Godfeng Zhao was conflicted for a long time, but he still couldn't get over it. In his opinion, if he wanted to defeat Dustless, he only needed absolute strength. But, Restia, even you have betrayed me. Looking at his left hand, Godfeng Zhao's eyes were indescribably turbid. He was filled with despair for the future and confusion for his own life. I didn't betray you. A melodious voice suddenly sounded. A girl in a black dress descended from the sky. Her beautiful face was filled with sorrow and endless bitterness. This person was Restia. You didn't betray me? Hearing this gentle sound of nature, the anger in Godfeng Zhao's heart was not cleansed. Instead, it was completely ignited. His eyes were bloodshot, like a trapped wolf that wanted to devour Restia. I'm a contract spirit belonging to Godfeng Zhao. Now, go and tell Dustless what you said. We can start over, and I could trust you again. Godfeng Zhao's eyes were like torches. His eyes were fixed on Restia as though he was staring at his prey. Restia was speechless. She couldn't say anything at all. When this sentence was said, Godfeng Zhao's head was separated from his body. Even though they had only known each other for a short time, Restia understood Dustless's temper very well. You really betrayed me. Godfeng Zhao glared angrily as he clenched his fists. You should be more careful in the future. After looking at Godfeng Zhao with a complicated expression, Restia's body suddenly drifted and disappeared from his sight. Restia, in the shabby room, only Godfeng Zhao was left. Previously, he still had a trace of hope in his heart, but now, the cruel reality mercilessly crushed his extravagant hope and sent him to hell. On the other side, Dustless didn't even knock and directly barged into Claire's dormitory. Claire, you're in such a hurry to find me. Don't tell me you've really fallen in love with me. However, in the next second, Dustless regretted it. I'm sorry. I'll be more careful next time. Dustless was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly lowered his head. He glanced at Claire from the corner of his eyes and saw that she was changing into a white fat too. Ew. These explanations were obviously superfluous, and Claire obviously didn't listen. Blushing, she angrily rebuked. "Perverted beast, why didn't you even knock? It must be intentional. Ugh. Did you forget that not long ago, you gave me the key to your dormitory, so I... In short, you have to understand that I'm not interested in your body." Raising his head to look at the angry Claire, Dustless was filled with righteousness. His calm gaze was as if he was looking at a rock. In fact, Dustless didn't have any dirty thoughts in his heart. It was all a misunderstanding. However, who would have thought that this rash action would anger Claire again? Women were indeed the most inexplicable creatures. "Bastard, are you saying that my body is too bad and that I don't even have the capital to arouse your desire? Tell me, do you want to be 30% cooked human flesh or 100% cooked?" Holding the long whip in her hand, Claire's entire face was bright red, like a monkey's, but... Are you crazy? Dustless's head turned black, and 100,000 alpacas' army surged through his mind. He couldn't help but think of that sentence. Only women and villains are difficult to deal with. "Sit down for me." Realizing that Claire was going to continue being unreasonable, Dustless's expression suddenly changed. At the same time, he released his powerful aura. As if struck by lightning, Claire suddenly went limp on the bed. You bullied me?" Looking at Dustless with grievance, Claire almost burst into tears. Women are indeed natural performers. "I clearly didn't do anything." Dustless's face was full of depression. He only released his aura and didn't hurt Claire. Otherwise, she wouldn't be alive. "Claire, long story short, why did you call me over?" Dustless went straight to the point. Looking around, he instinctively felt that there was a conspiracy. Sometimes, this girl with a jumpy mind really couldn't be treated like a normal person. "You are my contracted spirit. Is it wrong for me to call you over?" Crossing her arms in front of her, Claire looked down at Dustless with a face full of arrogance. However, due to her height, Claire looked more like she was venting her dissatisfaction. "You definitely can't sign a contract with that hateful Celestia." Glaring at Dustless covetously, Claire's face was serious. "Why?" Rubbing his nose, Dustless felt even more confused. Although Celestia didn't have much of an effect on his strength, he still couldn't help but want to ask. "This is my master's world. Why are you, a slave spirit, interrupting?" Claire scolded with a straight face. "This reason is really..." Dustless rolled his eyes. This valiant reason really left him speechless. "Wait for me to drink some water before I teach you a lesson. In the future, don't flirt with other people, especially women, no matter if they are humans or elves." Claire picked up the cup and was about to drink when a sudden change occurred. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2199. Plop. The hot water in the bottle seemed to come alive in an instant. It suddenly drilled out and transformed into a ferocious python. With lightning speed, it coiled around Claire from head to toe. Water elemental riot? Seeing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly. He suddenly remembered that something like this had happened in the original work. So that's how it is. Was it done by that chick, Restia? Dustless pursed his lips and smiled lightly. He secretly cursed the willful girl. If she had any trouble, she could have come to him. However, it's not bad to use Restia's hand to teach this abominable girl a lesson. She's a slave to and fro all day long. Dustless quickly felt relieved and walked to Claire with a playful expression. Yo, what happened to our previously unparalleled Miss Claire Lucio?" Dustless laughed gloatingly, not caring about Claire's green cheeks. You perverted beast. Your master is in danger and you're still looking on indifferently?" Claire loudly scolded. "Has your conscience been eaten enough? If you say it's eaten by a dog, then it's eaten by a dog. I don't care anyway." Dustless shrugged indifferently. Don't think that I can't escape without you." Claire no longer looked at Dustless and tenderly shouted, "Scarlet, hurry up and evaporate these water elemental snakes for me." "Oh." The fiery red cat's ferocious nature erupted. It bared its sharp fangs and spat out a large mouthful of flames. However, water and fire were two elements that restrained each other. It was normal for water to extinguish fire, but using fire to evaporate water had never been heard of. Perhaps some experts who had reached the peak of fire could evaporate water, but Scarlet was absolutely unable to do so at present. Poochie, sure enough, as Dustless had guessed, the moment the flames came into contact with the water snakes, they were ruthlessly extinguished. Ah! At this moment, Claire suddenly screamed. This scream was filled with fear, anger, and shyness. TSK, what a beautiful scenery. Claire was out of luck, but Dustless feasted his eyes on her. The rampaging water element increased its power to bind Claire, tearing her clothes apart. Her snow-white skin was in full view, and Claire's soft moans that seemed to be in pain, yet not in pain, had a special charm to them. You bastard! Are you really going to leave me in the lurch?" Looking down at the towering Dustless, Claire wanted to bite him to death. "Save you." Dustless curled his lips and said disapprovingly, "Didn't you call me a perverted beast and even tried to force yourself on me? My innocence was almost tainted by you." Dustless looked at Claire with a face full of fear. He was extremely aggrieved, like a resentful woman in her boudoir, asking for a beating. What did you say?" "I forced myself on you." This sentence was like a ferocious attack, smashing Claire until she saw stars. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2200. The purple monster slowly descended from the sky. It was a ball-shaped creature with a huge mouth that bared its fangs. It took up almost half of its body and spat out poisonous purple gas. The moment the monster landed, the sky darkened and was covered by its huge body. Ayo, ayo, ayo. The monster released a hysterical force from its mouth, and the fluctuations turned into a destructive shockwave. The buildings below were all destroyed and disintegrated like rotten wood, unable to withstand a single blow. Claire's dorm room was also the same, instantly exploding. If it wasn't for Dustless' quick reaction and carrying Claire away in time, Claire would have been buried alive. That was close. Claire was scared. Looking at the monster in the sky, she was furious. Just as she was about to teach it a lesson, she realized that Dustless was still hugging her. "Put me down quickly." Claire was embarrassed. Being hugged by Dustless so openly, she wanted to find a hole to hide in. "Brat, you're not taking advantage of me, are you?" "I think you're taking advantage of me." Dustless rolled his eyes and teased. "You're hugging my neck and sticking to my chest. Who's the one taking advantage of who?" "I." Claire was speechless. She quickly let go of Dustless's neck, her face flushed red. "Ah, even if I change the plot, what's supposed to come will come sooner or later." Dustless's voice came from the ruins filled with dust. Boom, boom, boom. A brutal energy wave exploded, blowing away the dust in the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, such a huge commotion naturally alarmed the others. The students of Alicia Academy all stared at the ugly creature in the sky with wide eyes. What kind of monster is this?" Claire's eyes widened. The shock in her eyes was hard to conceal. It was the first time she saw such an ugly creature. It had a huge body and a huge mouth full of fangs. "You don't know? To think that you're a student of this academy. The problem children of the Crow class really can't be looked at with the eyes of ordinary people." Dustless curled his lips and then explained in a soft voice, "This is a magical fairy." Dustless's words hit Claire so hard that her face flushed red and she felt even more embarrassed. She rolled her eyes and said angrily, "I'm purposely giving you a chance to perform. Do you understand? If everyone knows that you're a pervert, that you're ignorant, I, as the master, will lose my face." "Thank you, but don't ask me about this kind of thing in the future." Dustless expressed his disdain. This monster seems to have appeared in the original novel as well. Dustless narrowed his eyes and carefully observed the magical fairy floating in the sky. He thought to himself. In the original work, the fairy that disrupted the duel between Alice, Claire, Linslet, and that brat Feng Zhao seems to be this monster. Speaking of which, wasn't this monster released by Lestia? In the original work, it was to help Feng Zhao awaken, but now it's attacking me. Thinking of this, Dustless smiled bitterly. So it was he who had dragged Claire and the others down. It seems that Lestia has quite a bit of resentment towards me. Dustless sighed and looked up at the monster in the sky. Spiritual pressure erupted from his body, and just as he was about to crush it, the rampaging power suddenly stopped. This is a good opportunity. This monster can be used as a touchstone. It's a good opportunity to test that holy sword. Dustless's eyes lit up, and the corner of his mouth raised in an imperceptible arc. This was a good opportunity to display the power of fairies. Everyone, pay attention. Let this monster understand the serious consequences of invading Alicia Academy. At this moment, the members of the Knight Regiment swarmed over, led by Alice. She swept past Dustless and Claire and stood closest to the magical fairy. Turning her head to look at Dustless and Claire, Alice sternly ordered, "This has nothing to do with the two of you. Hurry up and run for your lives." "You want me to run for my life?" "Little girl, this joke is too tasteless. Boring." Hearing this, Dustless laughed involuntarily and rolled his eyes. "You want me to run for my life? Are you kidding me? What did you call me?" Alice looked angrily at Dustless. "It's fine if this guy secretly calls me a little girl, but how am I going to stand if he calls me a little girl in front of so many people? It's as if I'm Dustless's mistress." "That, Miss Alice, this monster is my prey. I hope that your Knight Regiment can make things easy and let me deal with this monster." Dustless couldn't be bothered to bicker with Alice. He was planning to use this magical fairy to test the power of the holy sword. How could he leave so easily? Besides, Dustless didn't think that the Knight Regiment would be able to deal with this magical fairy. However, Alice was displeased when she heard this. "This has nothing to do with you. Protecting the safety of the Academy is the responsibility of our Knight Regiment." Alice didn't back down at all. If the Knight Regiment were to run away now, how would they continue to survive? As the leader, she would become a joke. "You'll suffer if you don't listen to your elders. I want to see how your Knight Regiment will be beaten up." Dustless groaned. It was rare for him to bicker with Alice. The cruel reality would make Alice bow her head. This magical fairy was naturally just trash that couldn't withstand a single blow to Dustless. But to Alice and the others, it was absolutely an unprecedentedly powerful enemy. After all, these members of the Knight Regiment sounded mighty and domineering, but in reality, they were all flowers in a greenhouse. They hadn't experienced the destruction of storms and could wither at any time in the face of a violent storm. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2201. Dustless didn't think that this group of immature knights would be a match for the magical fairies. In the original work, it was also God Feng Zhao's small universe that finally defeated the magical fairies. It was obviously impossible to count on this group of young ladies. Let me try the power of that so-called holy sword first. Dustless squinted his eyes and didn't move at all. He tried to come in contact with that new power that he had never felt before. Then, he muttered softly, "The holy sword that Lung Che forged into the Queen of Steel and slayed the demon god has now turned into a sword of steel. Give me strength." Boom, boom, boom. Dustless's right arm exploded with a rather shocking energy wave. The tyrannical energy wave spread out and attracted everyone's attention. They all turned to look at Dustless in shock. This guy. Alice swallowed her saliva and looked at Dustless eagerly. It was her first time seeing Dustless release the fairy device. She was anxiously waiting. Not only that, but Claire also looked at Dustless without blinking. Her pretty face was full of anticipation. That holy sword should be very powerful, right? Claire was full of envy. She looked at the light that was blooming in Dustless's hand. It was as dazzling and holy as the sun. However, she felt very sad. After all, as Witch G, she didn't tame the holy sword and actually chose Dustless. How could it not be complicated? So powerful. Alice looked at Dustless with interest. She could clearly feel the extent of the divine power that erupted from Dustless's body. It must be the incomparably powerful fairy device. That's not right. After a while, the light in his hand disappeared. Dustless suddenly felt that there was an additional sword in his hand. However, the texture didn't seem right. If I remember correctly, this is the holy sword. But this weight, why? Sensing that the so-called holy sword was incomparably light, Dustless's heart suddenly thumped. He suddenly recalled God Fengzhao's encounter and felt even more uneasy. He quickly looked up. Mother asterisk Kerr, it's really like this. What a scammer. A genius turned into a loser in an instant. Dustless cursed loudly. The holy sword in front of him was just an exquisite dagger. It was exactly the same as the dagger used by God Fengzhao in the original work. How could it be a holy sword? It was more like a decoration for the nobles. Dustless's black-bellied smile spread through the clouds. Claire held her belly and laughed without any integrity. She didn't care about Dustless' feelings and mocked. Dustless, didn't you always say you were a genius? Why is there so little noise now? Is this your elven device? What a joke. Exactly. Although Alice's reaction wasn't as exaggerated as Claire's, she was still giggling. Dustless was speechless and embarrassed. He did not know how to explain. After all, this was the first time he had used the so-called elven device, and he did not know the specific reason. He could only bite the bullet and say, accident. It was all an accident. Maybe it's because it's my first time using it, so I'm still not familiar with it. You're right, but isn't your elven equipment a little too hilarious? This isn't a beauty pageant. If it was, I guarantee that your pearlescent holy sword. No, I should say your little dagger would definitely win. Claire attacked Dustless without any restraint. She had been bullied by this brat so many times, so she naturally had to take the opportunity to get back at him. Who told you that my dagger can't kill people? Even if it's a wooden sword, I can still use it to slaughter this fairy. Dustless's tone was very casual, but his great confidence made people involuntarily believe him. I don't believe you. Who are you trying to fool? Claire said disdainfully, looking at the little dagger in Dustless's hand with contempt. It looked pretty good, but was it a joke to rely on this thing to kill a fairy? Ayo, ayo, ayo. At the same time, the fairy floating in the sky roared wildly, and an oppressive roar resounded between heaven and earth. So strong. The expressions of Alice and the other members of the Knight Regiment all changed greatly. Everyone's face was full of caution, and their previous relaxed expressions disappeared without a trace. Small. Alice waved her large hand, and a sharp roar sounded in the azure sky. Looking up, a mighty and extraordinary eagle soared in the sky, and waves of clear cries came from its sharp beak. Boom, boom, boom. Under Alice's control, small swings flapped, and a violent storm comparable to a typhoon erupted from his wings. Boom, boom, boom. Perhaps it was because the force was too strong, but the tall and straight trees were all snapped in half. Even the sturdy buildings were trembling, and there were clearly visible cracks. The violent wind blasted the fairy's body, and his enormous body actually trembled inconceivably and was pushed back a little. As expected of the great captain, the members of the Knight Regiment all looked at Alice with worship, their eyes shining with starlight. Even Claire's face was full of envy. As for Dustless, he was already ignored like air. Boom, boom, boom. The ferocious wind and waves slammed into the magical fairies. At first, it was fine, and the disgusting monster in the sky was forced to retreat. However, in the end, it seemed to have angered the ugly super monster. It opened its ugly mouth and roared twice. Ayo, ayo, ayo. A hysterical explosion resounded through the sky, and a formless shock wave surged out, and unsurprisingly, it affected Smooth. Roar! Small let out a long cry, no longer as spirited as before. After a few mournful cries, he was like a kite with a broken string. Under everyone's shocked gazes, he finally slowly fell to the ground. The great captain lost. The members of the Knight Regiment were all incomparably shocked. Alice was their spiritual faith. If even Alice lost, who could stop this ugly fairy? For a moment, everyone was incomparably panicked. TSK. As expected, you still have to rely on me. This time, don't embarrass me. Stroking the holy sword in his hand, Dustless stepped forward with a smile. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2202. The knights were all stunned. Alice was their spiritual faith. If even Alice failed, who would be able to stop this ugly magical fairy? Everyone panicked. TSK, you still have to rely on me. Don't embarrass me this time. Dustless stroked the holy sword in his hand and stepped forward with a smile. This monster isn't something you can handle. Don't meddle in other people's business. Seeing Dustless step forward, Claire quickly stood in front of him. If I don't meddle in other people's business, am I counting on you? Dustless asked with a smile, but in his heart, he had a whole new level of respect for Claire. This little girl looked a bit heartless, but she had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. In fact, she cared a lot about Dustless. Otherwise, she wouldn't have stood in front of him. Don't look down on me. Claire proudly stuck out her cleavage. Too small. Glancing at her cleavage, Dustless tried to persuade her. Besides, in your eyes, am I someone who likes to talk big? This? Of course not. Claire paused for a moment before answering seriously. No matter what, Dustless usually looked sloppy and unreliable. But in reality, sometimes his frivolous appearance was more like disdain. Do you want to die? Dustless's appearance attracted everyone's attention. Alice said seriously, don't joke with your life. This has nothing to do with you. Hurry up and leave. I appreciate your kindness, but Dustless's smiling face suddenly turned bone-chillingly cold. He said coldly, I was on a date with Claire at the time. Her dorm room was torn down just like that. How could I have a foothold if I had just watched? Bah, who was on a date with you? Don't talk nonsense. It's just a slave elf. Claire turned her head with extreme disdain, but the joy in her eyes was hard to hide. After all, she had been alone for so long. Other than Lincelet, her friend, the chances of anyone else standing up for her were zero. It was normal for her to be moved. How about this? Alice rolled her eyes, then moved closer to Dustless and suggested in a low voice, why don't we work together to deal with this guy? With this, the chances of winning might be. I refuse. Dustless didn't even give Alice a chance to finish her sentence. He said softly, I'm used to being alone. Sorry, but I have no interest in working with others. You ungrateful stinky man. Alice stomped her feet in anger. She retreated with the rest of the knights and looked on coldly. Ayo. As for the magical fairies in the void, they seemed to be enraged by Dustless. They opened their mouths and spat out a huge sound wave. Many people's ears were stinging and their eardrums were about to shatter. Quickly cover your ears, Alice hurriedly urged. Her entire body was dizzy from the assault of the sound waves, and her head was ringing incessantly. The world was spinning, and she was unable to find her bearings. Why do you act like I killed your father? Dustless had an innocent look on his face. In fact, he knew that the magical fairies were actually venting Restia's anger. After all, it was Dustless that caused the relationship between Godfeng and Restia to break down. It was inevitable that they would be viewed as enemies. The enemy of this magical fairies was Dustless from the beginning to the end. Despicable bastard, it's because of you that my relationship with Godfeng broke down. In the darkness, Restia subconsciously clenched her fist the moment she saw Dustless appear. Restia deeply hated Dustless. This brat was too despicable. If she killed Dustless with her own hands, Her relationship with God Fengzhou would be restored to how it was before. You really overestimate yourself. You're not even a match for me. Yet you found such an ugly monster. It's not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Are you asking to be humiliated? Restia. Dustless muttered to himself. His words were filled with confidence. Swallow this brat for me. First, bite that eyesore face of his into pieces. At a distance of a few dozen meters, Restia was extremely unlucky to see Dustless's despicable face. She was instantly enraged. Ayo, ayo, ayo. The magical fairies that were affected by her hatred were instantly enraged. They opened their big mouth full of fangs, and their huge body fell. Quickly dodge, Dustless. Claire looked at the big mouth in fear. It could easily swallow a building, let alone a person. Dodge? You're also looking down on me. I've faced countless experts in my life. What does a mere beast count as? Dustless laughed dryly. At the same time, he raised his dagger-sized holy sword. It's over. This scene, in the eyes of everyone, was that it could not withstand a single blow. How could such a weak sword defeat a colossus like the fairy? It was simply an egg smashing against a rock. He was overestimating himself. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, a huge wave of energy erupted from Dustless's body. It was extremely intimidating, but very few people could sense it. On the other hand, the magical fairies floating in the sky seemed to sense a sense of danger and were actually terrified. The magical fairies weren't as arrogant as before. Instead, their cries were filled with a trace of pity. At this moment, the magical fairies were still secretly controlled by Restia. The reason why they were afraid was entirely due to their instinctive sense of danger. Why would I need to use so much spiritual pressure to deal with trash like you? Just releasing a little bit of spiritual pressure is enough to make me think highly of you. The sacred sword that Wu Chan raised was shrouded in a dangerous sharpness. It was extremely dangerous. Even the space around the sword was slightly frozen. Go to hell. With a casual swing of the sword, the tiny holy sword suddenly swung down, and an unstoppable slash swept out. Almost in the blink of an eye, the monster was swallowed up. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2203. Poochie. The dazzling silver light pierced through the magical fairy's huge body. A long and narrow crack appeared on its body, almost covering its entire body. Its huge body was almost torn apart. Ayo, 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 ayo. The excruciating pain seemed to have stimulated the fairy. The fairy's life force was abnormally strong. Even though its stomach had been cut open, it still roared madly. It was even angered by the excruciating pain. Its roars were like thunder, spreading throughout the entire Alicia Academy. You're still not dead? Dustless frowned and muttered to himself. As expected, it's wrong to be merciful. I can't even leave you a complete corpse. Looking at the magical fairy, Dustless continued to mutter to himself. Anyway, it's painful for you to live. Why don't I set you free? When you step into heaven, remember that your benefactor is called Dustless. The spiritual pressure in his body swept out, and a ferocious and fatal move descended. Tao Breaker 90, Black Coffin. In the void, many black shadowless blades suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The magical fairy was like a black hole emitting a powerful gravitational force, instantly sucking in everyone's spiritual pressure blades. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. The incomparably ferocious magical fairy was instantly cut into 8 pieces, its huge body miserably dismembered. Gulp. Ugh. 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 Many people couldn't bear this scene. Their lungs were in turmoil, and they couldn't help but vomit. So powerful. A group of girls stared at Dustless, tongue-tied. This so-called powerful magical fairy was like tofu in front of Dustless. It couldn't withstand a single blow from him. What's there to be surprised about? Being stared at like a monster by a group of people. Dustless felt rather uncomfortable, especially Claire's fiery gaze, which was as hot as the sun, even wanting to melt him. "You're very powerful." Claire suddenly moved to Dustless's side and laughed. She was also extremely speechless. "Pa." Dustless almost jumped up. He turned his head and looked at Claire as if he had seen a ghost. He asked in disbelief, "You actually hit my butt? Is it my imagination? Or are you dreaming? You can hit me? Why can't I hit you?" Claire asked. Of course, being questioned like this, Dustless was really speechless and could only stare. In his opinion, Claire was acting like a hooligan. Dustless was used to teasing others, so he really wasn't used to being hit back. "Since you think it's very suitable, Dustless laughed vulgarly. He moved closer to Claire's ear and said unhurriedly, "In the past, I've seen your body. How about this? When we go back to the room later, we'll be naked and you'll also see my body. This way you won't lose out." When Dustless said that he would be honest with her, he purposely bit down on his words. Moreover, his face was filled with evil intentions, making him look like the reincarnation of a pervert. "You scoundrel." Claire slapped Dustless, her face instantly red. "Cough, cough, cough." Alice, who couldn't stand it anymore, coughed awkwardly and reminded them, "This is a public place. Please pay attention to your image." Dustless could afford to lose face, but Alice couldn't. "You want to thank me, right? Just say, I'll accept it all," Dustless said with a smile, looking at Alice calmly. Alice was speechless. She really wanted to sincerely thank him, but the words she had prepared were swallowed back by Dustless's words. "I can't thank you enough. If you need my help in the future, just say the word. Our night group will definitely do our best." After saying that, Alice left, probably to report the situation to Grievous. "I should also go back." Dustless stretched and turned to leave. Last time, he had displayed his extraordinary strength, so Grievous also gave Dustless the treatment he deserved, an independent villa. Different levels of strength would naturally be valued differently. The stronger one was, the better the treatment they would receive. Where am I staying?" Claire wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Looking at the ruined dormitory, it would take some time to rebuild it. The sky gradually darkened, and it was close to evening. That tigress Restia better not fall in my hands, or else. It was a mistake to let her go last time. If I had known, I would have forced her to sell me. In the misty bathroom, Dustless's mocking tone could be heard. It wasn't hard to hear the regret in his voice. Letting Restia leave was the worst choice. If he hadn't let her go, today's incident wouldn't have happened. After complaining for a while, Dustless put on his sleeping robe, dried the water on his hair, and walked out slowly. Looking at the living room, his gaze froze. "Miss Claire, what kind of show are you putting on?" Looking over, Claire was already lying on the sofa with her legs crossed. In front of her was a plate of fruits, and she was leisurely peeling them. "What? This is my home. Why can't I be here?" Claire was immediately unhappy. She put her hands on her hips and questioned, "I am your master, so what's wrong with me being here? You have the ability to pester endlessly. However, no matter what you say, there's only one place to sleep. If you could sleep on the sofa, I don't mind." Dustless shrugged indifferently. "Where's your gentlemanly demeanor?" Hearing this, Claire immediately jumped up. A mere slave elf was so arrogant. You want to sleep on the bed? That's fine too. If you want to sleep with me, although I am at a disadvantage, I don't mind if you squeeze a little, even if I have to suffer a little." Dustless opened his arms, but who would have thought that Claire would throw her slipper at him in an extremely unfriendly manner? P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2204. What kind of person was Claire? She wanted her to sleep with Dustless? It was impossible to put the two of them on the same bed unless Claire directly turned into a motionless corpse. Only then would it be possible to put the two of them on the same bed. I've already given you the opportunity. It's up to you to choose. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly and said magnanimously, "I've never liked to force things. No matter what, it's up to you." Those who didn't know might really foolishly think that Dustless was a good person, but in Claire's eyes, he was extremely despicable and shameless. Other than sleeping on the sofa, what other choice did she have? It was impossible for her to sleep with Dustless. Oomph. Want to take advantage of me? Dream on. Claire snorted disdainfully. Soon after, she thought of something and said disdainfully, "Even if I sleep with you, a shameless bastard like you will definitely say that I took advantage of you and took advantage of you the next day." This little girl is getting more and more quick-witted. Incredible. Dustless laughed embarrassedly. Needless to say, Claire had guessed correctly this time. It was probably because she was used to Dustless's tricks. Claire was already used to Dustless's methods. Claire snorted coldly, full of resentment. Soon after, she said unhappily, "Just you wait, Dustless, you better not fall into my hands in the future, or else. That's a pity. At least in this lifetime." Dustless shrugged and only laughed. What a joke. He had destroyed countless worlds. If he was dealt with by a mere Claire, he might as well find a piece of tofu and kill himself, saving himself from embarrassment. "Hee, you want to fight me with just you?" Dustless laughed dryly and immediately turned to enter the bedroom. As for Claire, there was no need to worry. This girl wouldn't freeze herself for nothing. Moreover, this villa wasn't cold, so there was no need to worry. After all, Dustless's display of strength had shaken Grievous. This mercenary, which naturally wouldn't treat Dustless unfairly. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the next day. The two quickly entered their respective dreams. During this time, Dustless was greatly disappointed. He originally thought that Claire, who was unwilling to admit defeat, would sneak attack him at night. Who would have thought that she would be so quiet, waiting for a few hours in vain? The next day, the sun was high up in the sky. It was a rare sunny day. Strange, why does it seem like there's an extra person? Wu Chun, who was sleeping, suddenly opened his eyes in a daze. He mumbled to himself in a daze. He felt as if someone was lying on his body. Why do I feel that my leg is being hugged? Dustless stared blankly at the ceiling. His mind was clear, but he was also confused as he muttered to himself. He vaguely felt that his thighs seemed to be tightly hugged by a pair of weak little hands. This feeling is quite comfortable. I should be dreaming. No. Dustless suddenly thought of something and opened his eyes wide in his sleep. Looking down, the thick blanket covering Dustless was actually moving slightly. What was strange was that Dustless was sure that he didn't move. Clearly, it was someone else. Could it be Claire? No, this is absolutely impossible. How could she take the initiative to throw herself into my arms and hug me to sleep? This is too unrealistic. I would rather believe that God Fengzhou can defeat me. Dustless suddenly shook his head. If Claire wanted to sneak attack him, perhaps his head would already be separated from his body and chopped into 8 pieces by that violent Sunder girl. If that's the case, it can only be her. Suddenly recalling the fairy sealed in the demon slaying holy sword, Dustless's mind flashed with a flash of realization. "Let me take a good look at you, my contracted fairy lady." As his voice fell, Dustless suddenly lifted the blanket and threw it away. A girl with long snow-white hair immediately entered Dustless's eyes. The girl's appearance was young, and she looked like she was in her teens. She had big, watery eyes that were as bright as gems. The girl's expression was languid. As the sunlight fell on her body, she appeared particularly lazy. Her originally bright eyes suddenly became incomparably turbid. "Good morning, Mr. Dustless." Extending her snow-white little hand, the silver-haired girl greeted him with a friendly smile. Although they were extremely unfamiliar, and it was the first time they met, the girl acted as if she had met an ordinary friend that she had not seen for many years. She was very familiar and natural. "Esther?" Dustless's eyes moved slightly as he tried to ask, "You know my name?" Esther's naturally naive little face raised a faint arc, but it disappeared immediately, as if it was natural for Dustless to know her name. "If you can know my name, why can't I know yours?" Dustless asked with a smile. At the same time, he rubbed Esther's little head. She immediately closed her eyes and lay on Dustless's lap with great enjoyment. "Aren't you curious how I know your name?" The girl's calmness was out of Dustless's expectations. He could not help but ask, "Since I know your name, it's normal for you to know my name as well." Esther blinked her eyes and asked very innocently, "Oh, you're right. We instinctively have a contract. There's a saying that goes, 'Hearts are linked as one.'" Dustless softly agreed. Then he lowered his head and looked at the girl lying on his lap comfortably. Although it was the first time they met, Esther's little face revealed a long-awaited look, as if she had been waiting for a long time. "All right, I have something to ask you." She suddenly remembered the awkwardness when she used the elven device. It was clearly a powerful holy sword, but because of Dustless's personal reasons, it became a decorative dagger. She was helpless and angry. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2205. Dustless, Cohen, are you trying to ask me why I can't unleash my full strength when you use the fairy device? Tilting his head, Esther voiced out Dustless's confusion. "That's right. I really can't figure out the reason." Hearing this, Dustless nodded. He didn't think that he was useless. He was a ten-tailed beast with almost perfect stats in all aspects. Immortal body, unlimited stamina, endless power, and many other excellent conditions. How could such a perfect combination be useless? "Didn't you already tell me the reason?" Esther didn't answer, but asked instead. "You already told me?" Hearing this, Dustless frowned slightly. He lowered his head and pondered for a while. Then he slapped his thigh and asked in surprise, "Could it be that I really can't control it well?" This was just an excuse to fool Claire and Alice. "Yes." Esther lowered his head seriously and said in a serious tone, "You are indeed not familiar with using the fairy device for the first time. If you want to unleash my full strength, you will need more training." "That makes me feel better." Dustless nodded slowly. The nail in his heart had been removed. Lying on the pillow, he said contentedly, "Esther, hurry up and put on your clothes. Otherwise, if that devil Claire finds out, she will—" "Sorry, your reaction is too slow. I already found out." Bang! The owner of the murderous voice kicked open the bedroom door in anger. It was Claire, who was about to go berserk. "Dustless Cohen, who is she?" Pointing at Claire, Esther tilted his head and asked, "I feel a dangerous, murderous aura. It seems to be directed at you. Are you enemies?" "I feel it too." Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew that Claire was jealous. He could feel Claire's anger from a few meters away. If he didn't give a reasonable explanation, Claire would definitely not let him go this time. Cough, cough, cough. This, clearing his throat, Dustless planned to explain before Claire made her move. Who would have thought that a sudden voice would directly interrupt Dustless's speech? "Dustless, I heard that you fought a monster yesterday. You must be exhausted. I personally made some nourishing dishes. Eat them while they're hot." The person who interrupted Dustless's speech was none other than Linslet. However, the moment the master and servant stepped into the bedroom, Linslet was stunned. She saw that Estelle was not fully clothed. She was only wearing knee-length socks and was lying in Dustless's arms in an extremely ambiguous position. Bad things are happening one after another. This time, even if I jump into the river, I won't be able to clear my name. My nickname as a pervert is going to be confirmed. Dustless rubbed his eyes gloomily. Suddenly, he felt two monstrous waves of anger directed at him. However, this was only the beginning. "Dustless, you helped our night group yesterday. Today, I brought something to see you." The crisp and pleasant female voice sounded again. Dustless heard the owner of this voice and felt uncomfortable in his heart. He was 100% sure that the owner of this voice was Alice. The pleasant and caring tone was extremely horrifying to Dustless's ears. If possible, he hoped that no one would appear at this moment. Like Linslet, the moment she stepped into Dustless's bedroom, Alice was also stunned. Seeing Estelle lying in Dustless's arms without clothes covering her body, her snow-white face immediately flushed red. The scene froze for a few seconds. Claire, Linslet, and Alice, who had always been on bad terms, actually stood on the same front to deal with Dustless together. Smolf, Scarlet, Fenrir, the three delicate beauties actually released their contracted spirits at the same time and glared at Dustless covetously. The anger in their eyes was not concealed at all. Let's talk things out. Everyone sit down. Seeing the three women who shared the same hatred, Dustless's old face changed slightly. He never thought that the three women would join forces to deal with him. Pervert, I misjudged you. Linslet snorted ungratefully and immediately ordered, Fenrir, turn this pervert into an icicle and eliminate scum for the school. Smolf, you go too. Scarlet, you too. Claire and Linslet shouted at the same time. The three contracted spirits attacked Dustless at the same time. It was also at this moment that Estelle, who was lying in Dustless's arms, suddenly stood up and stood in front of Dustless without hesitation. Squat down, Este said softly as an extremely powerful aura swept out from him. Meow, meow, ow, ow, woo, 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 the three contracted spirits whined at the same time. Then, under the horrified gaze of Claire and the others, they all obediently laid down in front of Estelle, their eyes filled with deep fear. What's going on? Linslet was shocked. At the same time, she was speechless. Her face was so awkward. She lifted her head and saw that Fenrir was as obedient as a puppy. It looked like it had met its master. Linslet had no face left. Not only Fenrir, but even Smolf and Scarlet were the same. Charge, Scarlet. Claire raised her voice several times, but the sad thing was Scarlet ignored her. Alice was also shocked. She looked at Dustless, who was hiding behind Estelle, and deliberately said, Dustless, are you a coward who hides behind a child, greedy for life and afraid of death? This was obviously a provocation, but after living for so many years, would Dustless care? Obviously not. That's not bad. It's interesting to live off a woman occasionally. After all, I'm so handsome, it's normal to be fancied. If you want to keep me as your mistress, you'll have to line up. Who asked me to be so popular? Dustless's answer angered the three of them. He was living off a woman and still said it so righteously. This guy was simply shameless. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2206. This was obviously a provocation, but after living for so many years, would Dustless care? Obviously not. This is not bad. It is interesting to live off a woman occasionally. After all, I'm so handsome, it is normal to be fancied. If you want to keep me, you have to line up. Who asked me to be so popular? Dustless's answer angered the three of them. How could he be so righteous when he said that he was living off a woman? This guy was simply shameless. Don't think that I am hopeless. What I said is the truth. Dustless leaned on the pillow lazily and said with a smile, You are still young now. When you grow up, you will understand what I mean. There are many things in this world that are beyond your control. The level you are exposed to now is too small, so you have a choice. You will not be exposed to that level, but when you grow up in the future, your sharpness will be worn away by time. It is so strange to be lectured by an old pervert like you. Claire groaned and looked at Dustless with dissatisfaction. Then she swept her eyes over Esther and stared at him, who looked like he was in his teens. She said with a sorrowful expression, My slave elf won't even let a little girl go. She's still a young girl, right? This is too perverted. As a master, I feel ashamed. As soon as she finished speaking, Claire looked at Dustless with disdain, as if she had seen a fly. Exactly. Alice and Linslet were also disgusted. If it was anyone else, it would have been fine, but Estelle saw that he was only 12 or 13 years old. If he was not a pervert, then what was he? Seeing that the girls were really angry, Dustless hurriedly looked at Estelle for help. Ahem! Estelle, hurry up and explain to me. I am a master's. Estelle nodded slowly and looked at Dustless. Unexpectedly, the latter was speechless. This little brat is too naive. This explanation will only make the misunderstanding worse. Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry. He suddenly raised his head, and it was exactly as he had imagined. He could only continue to explain. Her name is Esther. Her identity is actually the spirit in the Holy Sword, which is also my contract spirit. The contract spirit sealed in the Holy Sword? Hearing this, Claire looked at him in surprise. She had also wanted to tame the sacred sword, but who would have thought that she would almost lose her life? In the end, it was Dustless who had benefited from it. Even now, Claire was still brooding over this matter. Yes, Esther nodded in agreement with Dustless's words. The three women looked at each other. Only then did their misunderstanding of Dustless disappear. Their cold gazes gradually softened as they stared at Estelle's calm eyes. It was not difficult to see that even if she was not fully clothed, it was not Dustless who forced her. Consider yourself lucky this time. Next time, if you dare to flirt with other women, be careful that I will chop off that part of yours. Claire looked at Dustless with a smile and said creepily, "This is really terrible. Women who go crazy are the natural enemies of men." Dustless sighed, then smiled and said, "I'm fine. It's just taking care of a magical spirit. It's not enough to make me tired. Some people who wanted to please you spent so much effort to make dishes that were not effective." With her hands on her hips, Claire glanced at Dustless and righteously declared her sovereignty. "Also, Dustless is my contract spirit. Pay attention to your identity, Linslet." How long are you going to say such childish words? Claire. Linslet calmly stroked her golden hair and said disdainfully, "Stop dreaming. Do you think this guy will submit to you? You don't even have a butt or a chest. Whether or not you can get married is a problem." Linslet was obviously not to be trifled with. Her poisonous tongue was not inferior to Dustless's in the slightest. It is said that the war between men is bloody, while the war between women is erotic. Now it seems that this saying makes sense. Dustless watched silently and finally looked at Alice. "There's no need to thank me. Actually, it was I who implicated you." Dustless's tone was apologetic. In the end, that magical spirit came for him, and Alice and the others were just innocently implicated. Alice was silent and looked at Dustless quietly. After hearing these words, her impression of him increased. This guy seemed extremely unreliable, but he was still clear about gratitude and grudges. He would not make trouble for no reason. Speaking of which, it would be best for your night group to pay attention to that brat god Fengzhao in the future. Dustless looked at Alice meaningfully, then waved his hand and said, "Of course, you can also take this as my personal revenge against him. In any case, it's up to you how you want to deal with him. Pay attention to God Fengzhao." Hearing this, Alice frowned slightly. Everyone knew about the grudge between God Fengzhao and Dustless. His words did not sound like a personal revenge. "Is that guy very suspicious?" Alice asked with a frown. "Of course he is." Dustless nodded and said, "Restia is God Fengzhao's contracted spirit, and the magical spirit from before was instigated by Restia. The relationship between the two of them is like the lotus root and the silk thread. Isn't this suspicious? In my opinion, with all these reasons combined, it is normal to imprison that brat." "All right, I will pay attention to him." No matter what, Alice was still skeptical. She took it as doing Dustless a favor. In any case, if it were not for Dustless, her night group might have been completely annihilated by that magical spirit. Hee, there will be a good show to watch now. Dustless's lips curled into a naughty smile. This was equivalent to helping God Fengzhao establish a strong enemy. Alice was an upright and fair person. She would not allow sand in her eyes. Once she had the slightest doubt, she would investigate to the end. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2207. Whether it was despicable or shameless, it didn't matter. The winner was king. The process and methods were secondary. That was why the saying, good people don't live long, while bad people live for thousands of years, came about. With Estelle's help, the three girls nagged for a while before slowly leaving. Dustless could only accept it silently. Although they were very jealous, one thing was undeniable. From the beginning to the end, whether it was Claire or Linslet, they were all thinking for him. Therefore, Dustless sometimes tolerated the wayward behavior of the three girls. After all, they were all on the same side. Moreover, the complaints of the girls sometimes seemed like pure coquettishness. Speaking of which, where did Claire go? Didn't her dorm get torn down, and she wants to stay here? After putting on his clothes, Dustless realized that Claire had disappeared without him noticing. I'm not sure. Estelle happily held the ice cream in her hands, as if she had eaten honey. Her face was full of sweetness. This foodie. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He couldn't help but think of the night sword god Toka. He lowered his head and looked at Estelle. It seemed like he could see the figure of the night sword god Toka. That problem girl is really troublesome. Let's go out and take a look. Dustless sighed. In the original work, Claire went out alone to relax. In the end, she was schemed against by Celestia and almost got into big trouble. Therefore, Dustless decided to go out and look for her. Estelle, let's go. Without waiting for Estelle's reply, Dustless walked towards the gate of Alicia, Elf Academy. Okay, Dustless, Kun. As for Estelle, she just happily hugged her ice cream and followed Dustless. With Dustless and ice cream by her side, she never felt lonely or lost. To Estelle, as a contracted elf, Dustless was her everything. Despicable Dustless, I'm just a slave. How dare you go behind my back and flirt with other girls? Could it be that I'm not charming at all? On the bustling street, Claire's desolate figure was extremely lonely. Is it really as Linslet said, that my breasts are too small? And Dustless, that pervert, likes big breasts? Claire's footsteps suddenly stopped. Staring at her negligible cleavage, she couldn't help but feel defeated. For the first time in her life, she doubted her own figure. Little girl, you seem to be very sentimental. Just then, a pleasant voice came from behind her. It sounded a bit cold and even hostile, but Claire didn't hear it because she was in a trance. Who are you? Claire turned her head abruptly. The person in front of her was wearing a thick robe. You seem... Claire narrowed her eyes. She suddenly felt that the owner of this voice was familiar, as if she had met him somewhere before. I know you. Although it was only a guess, Claire looked at the black-robed man with unusual certainty. I didn't expect you to have such a deep impression of me. Should I feel honored? But it's a pity that you are that guy's woman. We are destined to be enemies. The black-robed man sighed. Then he took off his robe, revealing a well-developed body and an exquisite face. Lysia. Claire recognized this person's identity with a glance. Her hair stood on end, and she said warily, Are you looking for me for revenge? Also, watch your tone. I'm not Dustless's woman. Who would have thought that Lysia would only laugh and say disapprovingly, I didn't say you were Dustless's woman. Are you admitting it yourself? You dare trick me? Claire's pretty face flushed red. Her expression was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, full of hostility. If I wanted to trick you, you would already be dead, wouldn't you? Lysia smiled gently, her charming eyes like silk. She said indifferently in a soft voice, I really don't know where that stinky man got his luck from. He actually managed to trick a group of women into revolving around him. That's right. Claire nodded in agreement. You want to obtain your slave spirit, that guy Dustless? After a while, Lysia blinked. Her watery eyes contained a huge amount of magic, enticing Claire's mind. Bah, who wants that bastard? It's best if he dies, Claire said disdainfully. She couldn't help but ask, What method do you have? Of course it's great strength. In the end, it's still because you're too weak. Lysia pursed her lips and thought silently for a while. Then she said slowly, If you have strength that surpasses Dustless, would that guy still ignore you? If you have great strength, you can chase away all the women around Dustless. That seems to make sense. Claire nodded subconsciously. In the end, it was still because of her own strength. This was a hard wound. Claire's gem-like fiery eyes suddenly dimmed. She took the bait, seeing the absent-minded Claire. A crimson ball of light suddenly appeared in Lysia's hand. It floated above her palm, emitting an evil light. The moment this crimson ball of light appeared, Claire's mind was attracted. This is a spirit. Claire swallowed her saliva and asked eagerly. That's right. Lysia nodded her pure white chin and said, This is a mad spirit. It's far more powerful than Dustless's holy sword. Do you want to obtain it? These words were like a fatal blow to Claire's heart. Claire's heart suddenly trembled, and she nodded slightly. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2208. What Restia said was exactly what Claire wanted. She needed to be strong, not only for Dustless, but also for her other worry, her sister. Therefore, Claire needed powerful strength. Claire subconsciously reached out her small hand to grab the crimson ball of light. You want to use me to deal with Dustless? Claire suddenly recalled Dustless's smiling face and stopped as if she had been electrocuted. That's right, that's my plan. Facing Claire's question, Restia didn't deny it and said coldly, In order to get me, that guy used tricks to drive a wedge between me and the god. Why can't I take revenge? Claire frowned when she heard this. In fact, she didn't have any objections to this matter. The nature of this world was that the strong preyed on the weak. Just like how she had always wanted to snatch away the holy sword that sealed Esther, it was survival of the fittest. If God Fengzhou lost, he could only blame himself for being inferior. Dustless has a better future than God Fengzhou. Although she was unhappy with Dustless's promiscuous lifestyle, Claire couldn't deny that 10 God Fengzhou stacked together couldn't compare to one Dustless. You're right. He's indeed very different. Restia nodded slightly. This was a fact, and there was no need to deny it. But does this have anything to do with me? Since he wants to drive a wedge between me and the god, is there anything wrong with me helping you deal with Dustless's other women? Back and forth. Claire opened her mouth and found herself speechless. Restia was right. If Dustless could deal with God Fengzhou, then why couldn't Restia deal with Dustless's women? This was very fair. This damn school is really big. Dustless ridiculed. Beside her was Alice. Alicia Elven Academy was too big and needed a tour guide. It was impossible to rely on Dustless alone. Thus, Alice, who owed Dustless a favor, volunteered to help Dustless find Claire. Claire's older sister is a sore point in her heart. All these years, she's always wanted to sign a contract with a powerful spirit, but she failed every time. Now that she's disappeared, she probably went to find another powerful spirit. On the street, Alice explained to Dustless that Claire sounded very familiar. What the hell? I remember that you and Claire are enemies, right? After listening to your explanation, why do I feel like you're secretly observing her? Could it be that Lincelet has possessed him? Wu Chun asked in surprise. The smile at the corner of his mouth was full of meaning. Alice's pretty face turned red, and her expression was awkward. She stuttered, not knowing what to say. Hypocrite. Esther glanced at Alice and continued to eat her ice cream. I'm the leader of the night group. I need to understand the personality of every student in Alicia and make sure that they're not bad people. Alice found a lame excuse to deal with it. This excuse is really lame, isn't it, Esther? Dustless said, curling his lips. Yes. Esther nodded innocently. Everything Dustless said was right to her. Alice angrily looked at the master and servant pair. Unable to vent her anger, she could only change the topic. No matter what, as long as there are elves, Claire can appear. I previously heard that there was a battle about military elves. No need to say more. Let's go there. Dustless's eyes flashed as he ordered in a serious tone. Contract spirits were summoned through a contract with the spirit user, but military spirits could be controlled without a contract. They had a wide range of uses, and regardless of the spirit user's ability, most people could draw out a certain degree of power from the military spirit. This was what Claire needed. In the original book, she participated in this competition. Okay, follow me. Although she didn't know why Dustless was so sure, Alice, who had no clue, could only nod. She didn't know where Claire went anyway, so she could only search one place at a time. On the other side, the competition about the military spirit. Even though Claire's previous performance was rather outstanding, almost all the enemies she met defeated her with valiant strength, and she was incomparably impressive. But as the saying goes, the bird that sticks out will be shot. Sometimes, being too outstanding wasn't a good thing. It would cause jealousy. The other competitors who wanted to win the military spirit achieved their goal of eliminating Claire as an obstacle. TSK, this girl is very outstanding. Her spirit is also very strong. It's just that it hasn't been discovered yet. Celestia, who was secretly observing the competition, nodded lightly. Claire's strength was indeed not bad. But Dustless, that brat, what's so special about him that he can win the favor of so many girls at the same time? Are the taste of girls nowadays so bad? Obviously thinking of something bad, Celestia's pretty face immediately became unhappy. She cursed inwardly. She's clearly a sunny and strong girl. Why is she following that bastard Dustless? What kind of charm does that brat have? Celestia understood. No matter if it was Claire, Linslet, or Alice, they were all outstanding figures among their peers and could be called geniuses. But these people seemed to have ambiguous relationships with Dustless. Claire naturally didn't need to be mentioned. She had always treated Dustless as her exclusive property. If anyone else dared to touch him, she would turn hostile. Even her only friend, Linslet, was no exception. And Linslet was the same. As a noble lady, she actually often sent food to Dustless to eat. Sometimes she even cooked personally. Although the food she cooked was hard to swallow, anyone could tell that Linslet also had feelings for Dustless. Although Alice was a bit of an exception, she was very curious about Dustless. Once a woman was curious about a man, she was close to falling for him. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2209. Bang! Accompanied by a dull explosion, Claire's frail body flew out and landed on the ground in a sorry state. Her pretty face was pale and green, without a trace of blood. She simply didn't have enough strength to deal with the combined forces of everyone. Not everyone was as heaven-defying as Dustless, who could single-handedly destroy an opponent. Moreover, before his rise, Dustless was actually just a small character. No matter what, everyone had a period of time when they were young and inexperienced. Dustless's faint smile suddenly appeared in her mind. Claire was absent-minded for a moment. That seemingly frivolous and ridiculing smile had a special charm to it. What kind of person is he? Claire sighed softly. Although she called Dustless a pervert, and a scum all day long. But no matter what, Dustless only took advantage of her mouth most of the time and didn't make any aggressive moves. No matter what, I can't let that guy look down on me. Thinking of this, Claire stood up tenaciously, her unfocused eyes filled with determination and fearlessness. That kid's luck is pretty good to actually gain the favor of such a prideful girl. Observing from the shadows, Lizia was rather jealous of Dustless's good luck. The more outstanding Claire's performance was, the more she felt that it wasn't worth it for Claire. In Lizia's heart, Dustless was a heinous villain. Claire following him was like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung. The Berserk elves are about to go berserk. Lizia muttered to herself, her eyes widening in anticipation. Berserk elves were an extremely special type of elf. Although their strength was average, they were extremely vicious. Just like their name, they could cause the other party's contracted elves to go berserk. They wouldn't even recognize their own kin and would even attack their own master. Not long after Restia finished speaking, A heart-wrenching scream came from the arena. It was as if a demon had awoken and was venting its joy. Hee hee, the show is about to begin. Celestia pursed her lips and snickered. Following her line of sight, she saw that the contracted spirits that had surrounded Claire had actually started attacking their allies. The scene had sunk into an unprecedented chaotic battle. What's going on? Is there an internal strife? Claire's face was also full of confusion. She didn't understand why the people who had previously allied to deal with her had suddenly started killing each other. We're all enemies anyway. This is a rare opportunity. Scarlet, give me. Claire's gaze fell on Scarlet. Seeing the strange state of the contracted elf, her voice became softer and softer until it was completely inaudible. Scarlet. To Claire's astonishment, the originally petite Scarlet had suddenly become dozens of times larger. Furthermore, the pure flames emitting from his body had clearly been contaminated and carried a dark red evil light. This color was the same as the wild elf Celestia had given Claire. Eolo, 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 Eolo. Scarlet's sharp roar was filled with endless killing intent. The flames burning all over his body became even more intense. The enemy he was targeting was actually Claire. Plop. Perhaps it was her first time seeing such a scene, but Claire was so frightened that she fell to the ground. Soon after, 2 clear lines of tears slowly flowed down, wetting Claire's little face. Scarlet, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have participated in this competition. You become like this. Claire's nose was sore, and tears flowed like pear blossoms. No matter how innocent she was, she knew that this was the doing of the wild elf Celestia had given her. Oh, however, Scarlet clearly didn't want to listen to Claire's explanation. His huge body leapt up and opened his terrifying mouth full of sharp teeth to bite her. Not to mention the frail Claire. Even steel would deform after being bitten by such a large mouth, leaving a few horrifying teeth marks. Ah! So you really did participate in this competition behind my back. What a troublesome little girl. A lazy, unrestrained voice suddenly sounded, deep and magnetic. Although it sounded unreliable and lazy, in Claire's eyes, it was great joy. Dustless. Turning her head, Claire found that it was indeed this face that she loved and hated. Despicable guy. Why did he have to appear at this time? Was he purposely waiting for a handsome opportunity to appear? The moment Dustless appeared, Celestia's smiling face suddenly froze. She glared at that gentle face unhappily, feeling like a thorn in her side. Scarlet went berserk. It's all because I listened to that bad woman. Am I stupid? I was fooled by her words. Ignoring the situation, Claire threw herself into Dustless's arms and burst into tears. At this moment, she just wanted to find someone to vent her grievances to. If you're wrong, you should correct it. If you're not, you should try harder. It's just a small matter. Also, who said that Scarlet went berserk? No, don't worry, Scarlet was just emotional. He'll still listen to me. Dustless softly comforted Claire as he rubbed her little head. Listen to you? What nonsense! Celestia, however, snorted disdainfully and muttered to herself. A contracted elf that has been corrupted by a mad elf already doesn't recognize anyone. He even dares to attack his master, let alone an outsider like you who has nothing to do with him. He's just asking for humiliation. However, Celestia didn't speak for long before she was slapped in the face. Walking in front of Scarlet, Dustless said softly, "Sit down." Plop. Then, under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the berserk Scarlet sat down obediently and became the gentle kitten from before. In front of my power, all contracted elves are pets. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 reviews plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 22:10. Impossible. This contracted elf was corrupted by the mad elf and should have lost its consciousness. Why would it obey Dustless, an outsider? That contracted elf called Scarlet didn't even obey the orders of its master, Claire. Why would it listen to Dustless? What the hell? Celestia's mouth was wide open. She was so shocked that a fist could fit in it. Such a shocking thing was too strange. The contracted elf was controlled by the mad elf, and as the master, Claire couldn't do anything about it. But Dustless, an outsider, just said sit down, and Scarlet, the furious elf, immediately regained its calm. Dustless, Cohen, those eyes seemed to be very special. Esther was also very surprised. She naturally knew that the mad elf was unusual, but she still underestimated Dustless. Shake hands. Dustless smiled again as the Sharingan emitted a scarlet light. Awoo! Scarlet let out another roar. Although it sounded very scary, like the roar of a beast, it still obediently stretched out its huge claws. Seeing this scene, Claire was so happy that she was about to cry. This is just a small problem. Don't worry about it, Claire. Seeing Claire's grateful look, Dustless explained casually, remember, in this world, everything has its limit, including that mad elf. Compared to my Sharingan, it is too weak. Sharingan? Aster was at a loss. He looked at Dustless curiously and asked, are you the one who used this to control Scarlet? That's right. Dustless nodded. What kind of magic is that? Very impressive. Estelle looked at Wu Chan with a face full of eagerness. This. Dustless felt a headache. What was a Sharingan? How to explain it? The basic explanation was different. In different worlds, it was difficult to understand the power between them. Actually, it's mainly because I'm too handsome. This Scarlet is also a female elf. She was so charmed by me that she regained her consciousness. Sigh, what a lecherous elf. Dustless's face was full of trouble. Go to hell. My Scarlet isn't like that. Claire glared at Dustless with a red face. This guy was too infuriating. You don't believe me? Dustless's face was full of disappointment. Soon after, he said, Restia has taken a fancy to me. She knows that I'm handsome and can attract other women, so she wants to use Claire to chase away all the women around me. In the end, she will get rid of Claire. Sigh, Restia, this woman is really a scheming bitch. If she wants to possess me, she can just say so. Sigh, but I can't blame her. It's all because I'm too handsome. I'm really a sinful man. Pucci, Celestia, who had been staring at Dustless, almost vomited blood when she heard that. She roared furiously in her heart. I like you? Do you think I'm blind? This brat's mouth is so cheap. How did he survive until now? I'll talk to Dustless now. Celestia took 2 steps and stopped. She suddenly thought of something and sneered. Brat, you're trying to provoke me. You want to lure me out? Dream on. There's still a long way to go. You have so many women. There are countless loopholes. After taking a deep look at Dustless, Celestia disappeared. That woman can't be a Ninja Turtle, right? She's so tolerant. Wu Chan frowned slightly. When he realized that Restia did not appear, he shook his head in disappointment. His words just now were meant to provoke Restia. His purpose was to make Restia come out. Who would have thought that this woman's patience was stronger than he imagined? Awoo! At this moment, Scarlet let out a loud cry. A dark red ball of light flew out of its body. Berserk Elf. Celestia looked at the sky and answered seriously. It's this thing. That bad woman gave it to me. Claire clenched her teeth. At this moment, Scarlet had also returned to his original appearance, but he was lying on the ground half dead. His shiny fur was also dim, like withered weeds. It was obvious that the rampage just now had taken a toll on his physical strength, resulting in him fainting. Disappear, brother. Dustless blinked lightly. The evil ball of light was immediately wrapped in a black flame. Amaterasu. In the blink of an eye, the black, ominous flame swallowed the berserk elf's body. Not even a trace of him was left. Go back, Claire. Remember this lesson. Dustless glanced at Claire and saw her hugging Scarlet sadly. Your talent is not bad. It's only a matter of time before you become stronger. Don't borrow the strength of others. If you want to become strong, there are no shortcuts. I understand. Claire nodded her head resolutely. She hugged Scarlet tightly, not letting go. It's all settled? Alice, who had led the knights over, was stunned when she saw Dustless and Claire leaving the arena. Isn't this too fast? I don't have time to waste on other things. Dustless shrugged. Of course, this kind of small trouble should be solved quickly. Could it be delayed for a few more hours? That's right. It's fine if Celestia doesn't come out. But he an eye for an eye. As the saying goes, revenge doesn't wait overnight. Dustless laughed evilly. If he was schemed against, he had to pay it back 100 times. Otherwise, wouldn't he have suffered a great loss? Celestia could scheme against Claire, so why couldn't Dustless scheme against Godfeng Zhao? This was very fair. Moreover, he could take the opportunity to stir up conflict between Godfeng Zhao and Celestia. P.S. 3,000 flowers as a reward, 3,000 flowers as a bonus, 1,000 comments as a bonus, 500 automatic subscriptions as a bonus. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.